Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 200. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. 200 shows, 7 million hours, 10 billion whatnots, and you knows. We love every minute talking comics and hope that it shows. This is our 4-year anniversary, and we're kicking it off with a bang. Kent Hare joins us as we discuss that Justice League Crisis on Two Earths thing. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of you know.
Bang and thang? What the heck? Come on, guy.
Okay, it's a stretch.
It's a very big stretch, but you know what? I give you full credit for that. That's a full props on it. That was just a
I don't know that we need full props on it, but we can go from there. Jim, 4 years.
I know, dude, man. I was just thinking about just how weird that is to me. When we first started this thing, we went quickly from being a rotating guest panel from a monthly series to bi-monthly, then to, let's do it weekly.
Did we ever do bi-weekly?
No. We started off monthly, and then we started off monthly, and then I think the second episode may have been after 2 weeks, but then the third one was 1 week after that. So, I
don't remember it ever actually being that long between episodes. That was a long time. It was 4 years ago, so I don't know.
I could have swore. I'm not sure.
No, it might have been. You might have been right. I don't know. It's funny, though, that we 4 years and we're still doing this, because it wasn't originally even intended to be that long, because the whole premise was a little experiment to see what it would take to get a former or non-comic fan into comics. Yeah. So, I really did. The concept was to pick different people who were friends of mine who weren't reading comics, and to try out different books on them to see what stuck. And it went so differently.
I got greedy. I wasn't going to share with anyone. I had too much fun.
The first episode, it just felt right. And, we literally just stuck with it afterwards. And I'm so glad we did. Because, we you know what? If we had done that, we probably wouldn't still be doing it now.
No.
Or at least not in this capacity.
And there definitely would be something else that would be Raging Bullets.
Right. Jim, actually, I do want to talk about what we're doing with episodes. This was originally going to be, our 200th episode was going to be, and it is still going to be part of our month-long celebration of this, the greatest DC Universe stories of all time. What we're doing here is, we've been trying to schedule a JLA Avengers recording and Justice League Crisis on Earth 2 Earths recording with contest winner Kent Hare. We had the opportunity to do that, so we went with it. And this is our anniversary week for the show, so we're going to go with that. We have a contest we've been doing with David Barron, so I have a number of the contest entries that are aired on this episode as well. We also have at the end of this episode a very special from Eli 200th anniversary Raging Bullets song, which I'm not going to say anything about. I'm going to let you guys hear it at the end. That's going to be our closing credits this time around. But it's another Eli Raging Bullets parody, and this one's awesome. Cool. So yeah, I'm really excited for this one. Every episode this month afterwards, we're going to be airing your voicemails and emails on the greatest DC Universe stories of all time. We're also going to be this month doing JLA Avengers, which is hopefully going to be on our next episode. That's easily going to be a two-parter. And then you and I are going to be airing the greatest DC Universe stories of all time, talking about the CGS Super Show, which is coming up. We are going to be chatting about Blackest Night number 8. I think we're going to do some mini-sodes along the way, Jim, where we can discuss some of the current comics that are out there. I do want to give a shout-out to our show sponsor, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com, particularly The Shield. Jim, did you read Shield number 7?
Yes, I did.
Did you see the screen?
Yes.
What was on the screen?
I missed something then.
You didn't see the Raging Bullets on the screen, did you? Our podcast is in that comic.
I completely missed it.
I busted you. You're saying yeah, and you didn't even know why.
Well, I figured there's probably something good. What screen? Oh my God, there it is.
Isn't that cool?
Dude, that is outstanding.
Yeah. Art put our website up on there. That's very cool.
Completely missed that.
It was very cool. I did have the advantage of knowing it was coming, because Art had emailed me and said that, do you mind if I use it? And it was very cool. So I was, going to shout out to our friend of the show, Art Lyon. Very sad news. The Shield number 9 is being solicited. This is written by Eric Trotman. And I've loved this book. Art by Marco Rudy and Mick Gray, and of course, friend of the show, Art Lyon. And they have that cool Fox backup that's going on right now. This book's being canceled, Jim. I just saw it on our website.
What?
Issue number 10's in.
Oh.
Which, the only good thing is, and I do want to say this for fans right now, issue number 7 that's out right now kicks off Operation Gunslinger. This is a brand new arc. So it's a good jumping on point for readers, but also you're going to get a complete S.H.I.E.L.D. story. So if you like the S.H.I.E.L.D. with issue number 7, you can read 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I'm assuming by issue 10 that the Gunslinger arc, along with the series, that's when it's going to come to an end. I love this book. This Operation Gunslinger arc that kicked off in issue number 7 it gives a background of Higgins, how he got the S.H.I.E.L.D. suit, and what it was like to go through, because he basically through, I don't want to spoil too much, but he basically through a military action got injured severely. And this led to him getting the S.H.I.E.L.D. suit as a way through experimenting on him to save his life. And I love the different tone of this story because it really is a lot of his superior officers and a lot of his fellow soldiers feel that he doesn't deserve this privilege because he hadn't earned it yet. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of other soldiers that were worthy. And it is this whole concept. And remember, this is all, and just for listeners, this is all background story when there's a main story going on all the way through with this Operation Gunslinger where they're targeting weapons of mass destruction and various different experimental weapons that are out there that are being put into the hands of terrorists. I love this book. It's very cool. And if you're not reading it, this is a good time to jump on board and grab it. Hopefully some sales numbers towards the end of the run might consider them reconsidering canceling this book, because I love it. The S.H.I.E.L.D.'s really great. Eric Trotman, if you're a Checkmate fan, and if you've never read Checkmate, that's another one, he was a co-writer for a lot of Checkmate with Greg Rucka, and they have the same sensibilities in storytelling. So if you're a Greg Rucka fan with the espionage and all that, you really want to consider picking up the S.H.I.E.L.D. Eric Trotman's very much, it's something that's a little different. I'm not saying that he's cookie cutter exactly with Greg Rucka, but they have very similar writing sensibilities, which is really great because a fan of this kind of storytelling, you'd be right at home with this book. And you got that co-feature with the Fox, the backup, which I thought was really cool kicking off. So issue number 7 is a great jumping on point for both the main feature and the co-feature. You'll get a complete story. Consider picking up the S.H.I.E.L.D. because I think it's very cool. But the web, I guess, is being canceled too. It's both of them with issue 10. And I'm really
that's another good one.
I'm really disappointed. This book, if you want to pre-order it, issue number 9, it's regularly $3.99, 40% off, only $2.39. This is a book. Nobody pays us to make these comments about these books. This is a book that's important to me. I did the same thing with Vigilante. I'm really sad when I see a book that I've been really enjoying that's a little bit of a different flavor canceled, and I just want to shout this book out. I was in our forum today, and I was going to shout. I had this literally in the notes to shout out because, of course, we were on the screen in the book. I'm like, it's kind of cool that our website was posted there, so I was going to shout this out anyway. But to find out that I'm shouting it out and the book's going to be canceled, it's really sad and disappointing because I think it's a great book with fantastic art. So I'm just encouraging people, hey, it's something I really enjoyed, and if you haven't had a chance, pick up the S.H.I.E.L.D. Jim, on a happier note, InStockTrades.com has our new Rage of the Month. At the end of this month, we're doing like this whole month-long thing celebrating the greatest DC Universe stories of all time. Like I said, we're going to pull in your emails and voicemails that I've been getting from you guys. And we've really had a lot of response to this whole concept that we're doing this month, because you and I are going to do an episode coming up after we're done with JLA Avengers, jumping right into what are the greatest DC Universe stories of all time, and from our perspective. And we each probably have a very different perspective on that. One of my favorites of all time, and this is in my top 3, and I can easily label this as my top 3 Batman stories of all time, Batman the Cult. And this book is finally in print. When we started this podcast, it wasn't. I've wanted to do this on the show, but I wanted to wait, and I didn't want to do it when it wasn't in print because, to me, it's more fun if we do these Rage of the Months if it's something that everybody else can read. So it's Jim Starlin. Bernie writes in. The artwork is incredible. It's a new printing of the classic Batman tale collecting the 4-issue miniseries from 1989, Jim, our graduation year. Deacon Blackfire, a charismatic shaman with roots as old as Gotham City itself, has amassed the city's homeless into an army, one he seemingly uses to fight crime. But Blackfire has a hidden agenda. Regularly $19.99, this 208-page tome is 47% off, only $10.59. I want to thank our friends over at DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support us. But go to InStockTrades.com and pick that up. Remember, orders of $50 or more, free shipping. And that's a great way to grab that book. But I'm excited as can be to read The Cult. Jim, did you read The Cult when it came out, or is this something
No.
you read after the fact?
Oh, this was after the fact when it came out. And actually, you probably told me about it. Said, oh, yeah, you'd love it. You got to read that.
I read that monthly. I mean, that was a book for me that I read monthly, and I loved it. Jim, our contest winners are being gradually put up on the website, and I'm going to have them all up. This is we're recording this on Tuesday night. This is actually our 4-year anniversary that you and I are recording the intro for this particular episode. But I'm going to be putting up a poll by Thursday of this week where listeners can vote on their favorite winner, the one that they think should win for our contest. You'll get to decide the grand prize winner, first prize, and second prize based on the amount of votes that a person gets. So please consider going to the website, ragingbullets.com, voting on the poll. Listen to all the audios. It's fun. I'm going to air them on this episode, all the ones that I get in time for this particular recording. If there's any left over, I will be putting them all on the website and then airing them on the next episode. But go to the website because you can actually listen live from the website or download the different entries from the website to listen on your computer or your iPod or whatever and really enjoy them. I think it's really great. I want to thank everyone for participating. I want to thank friend of the show, David Barron, for being a part of this contest. In a week's time, 1 week after I post it, so if it's Thursday, it'll be the following Thursday, we will announce the winners, and it'll be kind of fun. I'm excited for this contest. It was a lot of fun. The entries are very funny, so definitely go to ragingbullets.com and check that out. Again, that's David Barron. David Barron's blog is myzombies.blogspot.com, and his Twitter is twitter.com/myzombies. I want to thank David Barron for that great contest. I mean, dude's donating a month's worth of DC Comics comps that he gets, plus a whole other box. That's a great grand prize. So I want to thank David Barron again for that. And we're, of course, donating a couple prizes as well. It's very, very cool. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twist, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing on the show. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you could better enjoy the show.
Jim, this episode we're going to be talking really in-depth in a very super geeky discussion that we had with Kent Hare about the Justice League Crisis on Two Earths DVD. And this was one for me. I had no idea the tangents we were going to go on, the geeky tangents about the multiverse and some of Batman's actions and things that went on in this particular, because we really got philosophical on a lot of this stuff. And it got very, very, very super geeky and a lot of, which is great. I mean, it's a great comic discussion. And this is really what this month is about for us. It's 4 years. We're really going to be talking about some of the and why not kick it off by talking about one of the greatest DC Universe teams, the Justice League. And this DVD kind of epitomizes all of that. And it's a great chance to talk about what we like about these DVD releases and things like that. This is going to be leading into, we were talking about this with Kent and having a decision to talk about this because we're talking Justice League with him in JLA Avengers. So this is kind of our kickoff to all that. It's going to be a 3-part segment really with Kent going heavy in depth into the Justice League through this DVD, talking thematically about that as we go through JLA Avengers in the 2-parter. So we got a lot coming to you, really heavy JLA discussion as far as what our concept of the team is and what's cool about the JLA. So I hope you guys all enjoy this one because we really enjoyed recording this. And I want to thank you all as a kickoff for just 4 years of spending time with us. We really appreciate it.
Holy caffeine!
For this first segment, we are joined by listener and friend of the show, Kent Hare, as we discuss the Justice League Crisis on Two Earths DVD. All right, we opened up the film with that whole Luthor Jester segment, and that was the first glimpse that, again, this is Earth 3. What we consider to be our villains are actually the heroes. But I love that thematically, if we want to talk about Luthor for a second, Luthor so much is, in this world, is the realization of his fears on our world. His fears of Superman being this being that's going to come and take over the world and that's terrible for humanity and all that. And on his world, he's actually done that. That's actually become the truth of his world. What is your guys' exposure to, Jim, I know from the comics that we've read together, like Countdown and stuff like that, but Kent, what is your exposure to Earth 3 and the Crime Syndicate? How long have you known about them, and what is your history with them?
Well, as far as how long, from when I was a kid, I think in one of the Justice League, 100-page super spectaculars, I think they reprinted the original Crisis on Earth. I guess it was Crisis on Earth 3, whatever that original story was. So, I mean, I've known of them, basically forever. I guess as far as the the more or less, as far as comics go, current incarnation, it was the Morrison Quietly hardcover that they did, which I got, sometime back around 2000. I think it had come out a few years before that. But anyway, that's kind of my history of them, and then just popping in. Now, I find it, the whole, exactly how they relate to each other, which one is the antimatter universe and which one is the Earth 3 universe, crime syndicate versus crime society. I find that terribly confusing, and I never can keep it straight. But, the basic concept, basically, what I just described.
Well, I think the way it works now, actually, is, and this is not what's in the film, the crime syndicate is the antimatter universe that Morrison created in that Earth 2 graphic novel. That's what's in current continuity. Because the actual crime syndicate that was on that Earth 3, we saw them, they actually died and were destroyed. But those Earths don't even exist anymore, at least the way that they did. In Infinite Crisis, they reformed the universe, and that's where that Earth 3 came from, part of 52. That's the crime society. That's what's on Earth 3 now. The crime syndicate, as we know them, is from the antimatter universe.
Right.
Now.
Yeah, and I still get confused. I'm with you on that one, where it sometimes... Yeah, I'm like, which one is this? Wait, hold on.
Well, there's an Ultraman on both the same way. Just remember, Crime Society, Earth 3, Crime Syndicate, Antimatter Earth.
Yeah.
And that's the way that it really is now.
Yeah, it's still, I think we should just have one bad universe and just have them be bad universe.
We have Justice League multiple times.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Yes, I'm okay with that because they're two separate people. There's not a Superman in the Justice League and a Superman in the Justice Society.
Yes, there was.
Well, that was a different Earth. I'm talking...
And that's what it is in this.
But it... and
ours, too. They all remember.
But it's... I don't know. It's less confusing for me on that end than it is for Ultraman and Ultraman. Which one's the negative Ultraman? Which one is the other being that Superman can actually contact without exploding life?
Technically, they're both the negative Ultraman because they're both very negative people.
Well, the one's cooler, I think.
Which one?
The non-antimatter Ultraman, I think, is a cooler guy.
So wait a minute. You're finding it confusing to distinguish between them, but you've already identified one as cooler?
Yes.
So haven't you then distinguished between them?
Hold on. Ask me why the one is cooler.
Why is the one cooler?
Because the one Superman can punch, and the other one he can't.
And that makes him cooler.
Yeah,
so which one can't he punch?
The non-antimatter one. Because Superman can't punch the antimatter one, because that'll be matter and antimatter coming in contact. Whereas the other one, who is just this evil version of him, he can still hit, so that means we could get some cool Superman
Wait a minute, hang on.
beatdowns.
Didn't you just get done making the statement that you can't distinguish between the two?
Right.
Didn't you just distinguish between the two?
No, I distinguish between a concept of the two.
Isn't that what it is? That's the concept. That's what distinguishes them.
But here's the thing.
This is insane.
But I don't know which one's which.
You just identified which one's which.
I don't know which one is the negative version that Superman can't hit, and which one is the one that he can't hit.
The one from the antimatter universe is the one that he can't hit. The other ones, if Superman punches him, it's the guy from Earth 3. If he can't punch him, it's the antimatter guy. How hard is that?
But what Earth is which number?
Earth 3.
Which one's Earth 3? Is that the one he can punch? Is that the one he can't?
The antimatter world is in our universe.
Oh, okay.
Earth 3 is a different world. There's not a... The antimatter world is an antimatter world and a mirror of our universe in our universe.
Okay, see, now I'm understanding it a little bit more.
That's where there's a distinction.
We had an antimatter universe that is the alternate, that's another number.
Here's the way we look at it. You know how we have a Justice Society here?
Yes.
Yet there's an Earth 2 with the Justice Society?
Yes.
This is the same relationship. We have a crime syndicate that's an antimatter version in our universe, a part of our Earth. Then there is an Earth 3 version, very similar to how there is a Justice Society, kind of like their... that's their own world, that type of thing. It's the same concept. The relationships between crime syndicates are the same as the relationships between justice societies. We get to keep one of ours, which is the one that he can't punch, the cooler one?
No, the one he can punch is the cooler one.
Because you like that he can punch him.
I like seeing him punch things, yeah. It's fun.
See, I would think it would be cooler that he can't punch you.
See, no, because
you like seeing Superman punch.
I like
Ultraman.
seeing Superman,
and you want to
beat
see
up.
Ultraman punch Superman.
No, I want to see that
That's
will
not
happen.
necessary.
But I like seeing Superman give a super beat down to people. It's fun for me, to watch it, and it's and the same thing can go with the other heroes beating up their alternate versions. I like the ability of physical contact and violence and all that kind of fun stuff.
So in your warped sense of all this, there could be 7 billion Ultramans as long as Superman can punch him.
Yes. As long as he can, as long as we can get the Superman Ultraman beatdown fight, then I'm cool with it. And it has a distinctive number, which one it is.
3.
Yeah, well, 3, or if they have like a 27 or something like that. As long as that person has a distinct, this is my universe,
Should he wear a
this
tattoo?
is my number. You know what? That
Should
would
they
be
have
nice.
flags like they would for the Olympics?
You know what? That would be actually kind of cool if they were to do something like that. Just some little marker, some indicator that we definitely know this is Earth 27 Ultraman. This is Earth whatever Ultraman or this is this Superman, this guy, yada 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 type of deal. Just something very distinctive, easy for me to follow.
With the X-Men, they used to say they had the M on their palm. That was a designation that they were a mutant.
Right.
So you're saying like they should open up their hand and there'd be like a designation of what Earth they're from on their hand or something, or do you want it, do you want it to be something on their shoulder? Where would you like this?
Well, it could even be an editor's note, just to let me know. And it doesn't have to be a branding on the person, just as long as when I read the story, I know what Earth they're from. That's
Actually,
what I want to know.
you know what? I'm kidding around right now, but I actually will go along with you on this one, that I do like editor's notes that kind of give you a little, hey, this is Earth such and such or something like that. We're in agreement on that. This was insane. Why did we get on this tangent?
I don't know.
Here.
So anyway.
Hey, I've got a question.
Okay,
I've got this right. Hey, we got the Earth 3 crime society that's all part of our universe, but on a parallel Earth. Okay, right?
right.
And then we've got the antimatter universe Earth that has the crime syndicate, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well then, do you think maybe the antimatter universe Earth 3 maybe has a good Justice League?
That's a good question.
But they're not cool.
I guess what I'm really, jokingly asking is, I wonder if the antimatter universe parallels the entire multiple Earths, multiverse kind of thing. Anyway,
Dude,
just a dumb question.
No, that's an outstanding question, because you think about it. If our matter, the normal universe, has this multiverse off of it, why wouldn't the antimatter universe have its own multiverse? So now we're dealing with a whole nother set of 52 possible Earths out there. And
Well,
are they mirrors of our, how, say Earth 21 is a opposite gender Earth. So the female characters are males and male characters are vice versa. I know there's an Earth out there, but what if, just throwing it out as 21. In the antimatter universe, would that Earth 21...
You're thinking of the antimatter universe is a universe off of our world.
Right,
So
but
it's
why
not a
can't
whole
they
separate...
have...
They have their own antimatter universe then.
Yeah, why can't
It was
they
not
have
the
their
same
own
one.
antimatter multiverse?
Because it's off of our multiverse. So like that antimatter universe is a part of our world.
Right. But couldn't their
So then they would have their own antimatter
multiverse?
universe.
Yeah.
Not a separate. It's a part of their world, a part of their whole thing. You're thinking it as a whole separate universe that like we have our universe and there's an antimatter universe off of it.
Right.
Earth 3 would have their universe and an antimatter universe off of it. It's not a separate multiverse. That would be the antimatter universe off of Earth 3.
But what
if they did have that?
If they had that, but why wouldn't they be connected?
Well, why would they be connected? Ours isn't connected to Earth 3.
Well, we have our
No, but they're not connected. They're separate universes in the multiverse. They're not connected. We're not connected to Earth 3. We can't go to like their Starbucks or something like that whenever we want.
Well, we can't, but
The Flash could.
Right. Could the antimatter version of the Flash
Yes,
travel?
but he's still going to Earth 3's universe. It's just he could go to their regular universe or their antimatter universe. It's connected to Earth 3. That's their universe. We have a positive and an antimatter universe within our world. This is making my head hurt. Why are you saying there's a separate antimatter multiverse?
I'm not saying there is. I'm saying could we have something like that? Could we have... We talk about the multiverse,
There's very
52
similar...
Earths.
Okay, technically you could say if every universe, which that's not to say every universe has to have an antimatter one. But every universe that has it in the 52, there's only 52 potential possibilities, if you're going off the way the DC universe works right now, of there being an antimatter universe. So there could be, as a part of the 52...
52 antimatter universes.
If each universe has one.
Right.
But they're a part of that universe. They're not their own separate multiverse.
But here's okay,
they aren't getting together and like saying, "Hey, we're going to have the antimatter universe football team, and we're going to pull guys from Earth 3 or antimatter Earth 3, Earth 5, and that type of thing." They're not. They're connected to their respective positive matter Earth. If that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense, and I'm agreeing.
I see what Sean is saying. Basically, that it's not a positive antimatter universe connected. Well, actually, I think he is saying that there is a positive antimatter universe connection at each Earth level.
Right.
As opposed to, kind of imagine it like a ladder with the rungs going across from positive to negative, as opposed to a big positive universe with... I'm not sure how to...
I'll settle this and we can kind of move on from it, because this is hysterical. This is
this is killing me in my brain.
This is an incredibly geeky discussion. The way you were saying it, Jim, there would be 144 worlds, 52 positive matter universes and 52 negative matter universes. There isn't. There's still 52 worlds. The negative matter universe is connected to the positive matter.
Okay. I'm just going to say yes and move on, because my head is starting to hurt.
This is a painfully geeky discussion.
A minute ago. I'm sorry I asked.
Oh God! Right now, people are just yelling at us. They're yelling. They're looking at their iPods, just yelling, going, "What the hell are you guys doing? You're killing me!"
What are we talking about?
I forgot.
Oh yeah, the DVD. Now, is this the positive matter DVD or the antimatter DVD? Now,
up and I stuck it in my DVD player, so I guess it must be a positive matter.
Unless it explodes. Then it's a negative matter DVD. Now, this idea of parallel worlds, Luthor comes to them for help. Would you go and save a parallel world? Because Batman and Wonder Woman each bring up an important philosophical discussion point. Batman's like, with all the trouble on our world, how can you go and save that world? And ultimately, we do see at the end of the film, Batman changes his tune and agrees with the whole theme and the direction that they should have done that. But he made a powerful argument. I'm sitting there like, and it does. This is an imitation where art imitates life. Because that question comes up right now in our own country with helping countries like Haiti and things like that. People will throw out, should we help Haiti, should we not? It's a great example of where they're saying right now, and I'm with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman said, we have these powers, how can we not help? Where are you guys at, though? Did you see Batman's side of it or Wonder Woman's? Where were you at as far as this went? Kent?
Well, I mean, the old saying, I can see both sides. The old saying is charity begins at home. But you are living in part of in the modern world, you're living in part of a modern world. You just can't turn your back on the rest of the world. I mean, or in the case of, in the context of this DVD, on the rest of the world, I mean, there is something of a moral obligation to help where help is possible.
If you can help, you should help.
Yeah, it's a toughie, because it's a big debate, because, when you're talking about with Haiti, I was thinking more with the whole Iraq and Afghanistan.
That's another
huge, the really good comparison, because both sides have very strong arguments. The one's like, why are we over there? And the other's like, hey, if we didn't go there, things would be worse now than if we had let them just run amok and do whatever they wanted to. That's the two arguments on each side, and to be honest, depending on what is going on, I can choose either sides, and I can argue either sides on it. And same deal with this. I could see Wonder Woman's thought like, hey, we have an obligation. We are heroes. This is what heroes do: protect the innocent. But you got Batman saying, hey, we got to concentrate on our world. We need to do our stuff. And it was funny because as I'm watching the movie, I was thinking, you throw out both sides are right, but you can't have, really, in an argument, both sides being right. You have to go with the one. Now, if I was sitting there and I was those heroes, depending on which hero I was, is where I would go with. And that was something I really liked about the writing. If I was Batman, I would have been completely in agreement with what Batman was saying. Same thing if I was like, Ollie, Green Arrow, or any some of the other characters that are more, I want to say, the less meta-powered. I would say them thinking more of the focused on their world. Whereas you get people like Superman, you get people like Diana, even Green Lantern, where they're more powerful, more the just that entity type thing, where they're thinking beyond just one world. They're thinking, we got to do this. This is our obligation. We are heroes. We must rise. It's kind of, if I was one of those characters, I probably would have been siding with the let's go and see what we can do and help them out and whatnot.
Actually, I want to correct myself. You're 100% correct that the Iraq comparison is better in this case, because you're talking about the heroes talking about going over during a war. This is a war that they're fighting between their good guys and bad guys, quote unquote, however you want to look at it, and them getting involved in that war versus a huge disaster like with Haiti and things like we've seen. Understand both arguments because they're very powerful arguments in either case, and this does fall more into that category. You're 100% correct. This is more that type of case. And that's what I liked about it, though, because it is one of those things where storytelling-wise, I connected a lot more with what's going on in the real world. That's all. I like when comics and comic-related stories do that. I think this shows where this medium really has a strong literary sense. Mm-hmm. And we can learn a lot from this medium and you could be a Batman supporter where you're like, no, Batman's right on target, or a Wonder Woman supporter. In this case, I kind of went with Wonder Woman on it because there was something about her saying, hey, we're rallying and, this is something we can do and we have a moral obligation to do it. I think if I had powers to do that, I would. I would like to think I would.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I really do think, depending on who I was in the universe, is where I would side with it. Definitely if I was Batman, Ollie, if I was even, I don't know, part of me would think the Flash would kind of lean more towards local because he's got such strong connections to the local world with wife and kids here and all that kind of deal. Even though I don't think this Flash had that whole family connection.
Oh, yeah, he did. Wally?
Yeah.
Huge.
In the DVD, I'm saying.
He did. I mean, it's the same Flash that we've seen in there. I mean, so it's. I'm guessing.
Yeah, see, I didn't know.
This is vintage Wally, so what I would have liked to have seen more in this would have been, like, when they brought in the second stringers, not the second stringers so much, the reservists, is probably a better term for them. I would have felt more comfortable with the heroes going to Earth 3 if they'd seen those guys come up to the satellite first, not for that to happen after Superwoman showed up.
As far as this Flash, did they ever identify him in this film as being specifically Wally?
I'm guessing just by his behavior and mannerisms. That's not a Barry type of way to carry himself.
He was the same character as in the Justice League. Yeah, the animated series, he was played exactly right. I was almost surprised that I don't believe it was Michael Rosenbaum that did the voice, but I mean, he was the character that I think that translated from one to the other seamlessly. But, I was just, because they had, just without explanation, went back to Hal as Green Lantern, and I was just wondering if they ever did specifically identify him as Wally. We keep referring to him as Wally, but, maybe not. Not that it really matters.
The actor that played him is actually Josh Keaton. It wasn't Michael Rosenbaum. But you're right, it sounded remarkably like Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah, that was the one character I thought, just translated, basically from the series to this without a hitch. The rest, the voice, that was the big thing. I really liked the designs of these characters more in most respects than I did the old series, but the voices, not so much, particularly Batman's. But that's a separate issue. Getting back to our big question of whether they should go or not, there is what I said earlier, as in the real world today, we're in part of a world that is increasingly interconnected, and things on the other side of the world do impact on us here, quote, at home. So just simply saying we're going to take care of problems at home and ignore the rest of the world, let them take care of their own problems, that's just not really a practical thing. Well, here they have Luthor showing up from that other universe, telling them about what's going on there. Well, they've got basically proof that what's going on there can impact on our universe, on our Earth here. So, they can't just ignore it. They've got to do something about it, I think.
And
that's my 2 cents.
As a kid, you mentioned that you'd read the stories where there was Earth 3, where Lex Luthor was a good guy. The relationship between that Lex Luthor and our heroes was that he was an ally they could call upon. They worked together, and it was a two-sided relationship. It wasn't them doing things for him, but when he teamed up with them, it was very, very much two-sided, where he would help them, they would help him, and it was a team-up in a very true sense, just like a DC Comics Presents team-up would be. And that was something that was great about seeing those universes, was that it was, kind of like a United Nations kind of thing, where you're building relationships, you're building friendships with these countries, in this case, other universes, for the sense that those people would help you out. I actually would love to see more of that. Where you get to see them occasionally call upon an ally from another universe or something like that, because I used to love those crossovers, where every year you'd get them, we send three of our guys over, you send three of your guys over, and we're going to kind of a friendship exchange where, and it really was, that was how it was. It was really kind of you get to know our world, we get to know your world, and it's a way to build a stronger relationship between the two of us. And that was what was always cool about the JLA, JSA crossovers. It's kind of hard with the big stories that are going on right now. Where do you do that without derailing what's going on? But I would like to see sometimes where it fits without derailing anything big that's going on. Them kind of, even if it's an annual, where they do that kind of thing. I'd love to see it because I think it's cool.
Kind of like when Riker went over to the Klingon ship and spent time as the first officer on the Klingon ship. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they got to throw a Star Trek reference in there somehow.
Star Trek references are always good.
How would you guys, if there was another world out there, would you guys fall more into the Owlman category, where he's distressed about this concept of every decision that you make having an opposite decision? And his idea is that there's no free will. It's whatever decision you're going to make is going to lead to other worlds where that decision's made another way. So does your decision really matter? No, because it will happen the other way elsewhere. So there is no real impact in his eyes, because what does it matter? If I do this here, you can go find it elsewhere if you don't like it, is his thinking. How would you feel about that if you knew there was another you out there that did things differently?
Well, here's something, I can very well understand his point there. It's something I remember thinking about a long time ago, when I was reading, and I love this series, Poul Anderson's Time Patrol series. Have either one of y'all, or both of you, ever read that?
No, but it sounds great.
Oh, they're great. Poul Anderson is one of the old guard, contemporaries of Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, the original science fiction writers. He died a few years ago, but one of his big series was Time Patrol, and it's basically these guys that patrol time to make sure that the correct, that time crimes, so to speak, are not perpetrated that derail the timeline. And one of the big things in it was, that kind of along this lines, critical decisions can send off to where you have a totally different, universe created. The beings in the far future who had set this up were basically wanting to protect their own past, was the whole idea. But I remember when I was reading that how, basically it almost makes everything meaningless, and then to approach it from a religious standpoint, which, I tend to approach a lot of things from a religious standpoint. It renders the whole idea of, God with some kind of plan for the universe just basically null and void, meaningless, if those decisions can derail everything so readily. So I can very easily see, Owlman's position that if every possibility is a reality, then what's real? What does anything matter then? I mean, it was something I could very well understand his position. Not sure that I would go with him to the totally nihilistic, attitude that he had and Superwoman seemed to have shared, but very understandable.
Yeah, see, with me, I understand what he's getting at, but I have kind of the opposite thought. If I knew that the multiverse actually existed out there and it was these other universes and stuff, I would actually have more of a curiosity to explore those other universes, because there's the what if questions in my head. I would like to go to those alternate versions and see what happened when this other path was taken. And I would have more, I'd like to think I'd have more of a curious nature where I would want to see what happens. I wouldn't want to change my current timeline. I am who I am. It's because of the choices I have made. It's because of what I have dealt with and the experiences I've had.
I need my pain.
Right. I like
Another
my
Star
pain.
Trek.
It works. No. But, I am curious, though, to see what had happened had this happened, or what if this happened, or where would my life be? How would I be different
if I'd made that different choice?
If I'd made those different choices, because anybody, if you stop and think about it, you can think of like a couple significant events in your life that have adjusted and changed, who you are and why you're here. And if you could see those other options, I'd be like, man, I'd like to see that. I'd like to know what the Sensei Whatnot on Earth 6 is like, or what the other, the guy who never got back into comics, who said, no, Sean, I don't feel like joining up with your podcast. You have fun doing it on your own, and not gotten into this whole
See what all that free time's like?
Right. All that free time, all that extra money, who and what I would be. I think that's, for me, is my more mindset when I think of a multiverse, when I think out of what's out there.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, I don't want to see the universe where you decided not to do this podcast. I get too much enjoyment out of it. But, I think it's a natural human thing to wonder what if, to draw a Marvel reference in, but what if the world were different? Part of me just basically says, thank God it's just a science fiction concept.
Owlman needs to be such an important... It's a narcissistic thing.
True.
You need to feel like you are having such an incredible impact that there's no other possible alternative. It's my choice only. And I am the center of this world, and there is nobody else elsewhere more important than me. And he has to be kind of the alpha version of himself in his eyes. And to find out that he is only one of many, and that one of those versions could somehow be better than him, or even more charming. I think those are things that would bother somebody. Like me, if there's another me somewhere else, I'm very happy with who I am. Mistakes, faults, everything. I've goofed up in my life. I've done things that I'm very proud of in my life. But I think the thing is, it is funny, the Star Trek, I need my pain from the Star Trek reference. I think because of the goof-ups that I've made in my life, I have learned from them and become a better person. We continue to make those mistakes and accept that and grow as a person because of it. But somebody who can't accept that they've made mistakes, who feel that everything they're doing is right, their goal is whatever, it's all about me, which is what Owlman is. It's all about him. He's got to be smarter than everybody else, one step ahead of everybody else. That kind of control, to find out that you don't really have the control that you think you do, because you're just a small speck in this big... He really is a small speck in a big pond.
Yeah.
And that's what's really bothering him. Whereas he wants to be, a killer whale.
Yeah, he wants to be it. And
he's a minnow.
Yeah. And within the context of this reality that they fashioned in this movie, he knows this for a fact. It's not just a science fictional speculation for him. It's a reality. So, yeah.
And they call me the Flash. I know I'm kind of jumping back to this, but it's something I don't want to forget about. Lex Luthor, this is a smart move. He shows up on our world and realizes, okay, I need to get arrested quickly because I need to get I can't waste time trying to figure out where the Justice League actually is. So I'm just going to make the assumption that he knows, obviously, at this point, that this is a world where he's a bad guy. And let's get arrested. Let's get the Justice League to come down and see me. I'm going to show him right away that I'm no threat by...
Yeah. And no concealed weapons there.
Yeah. But it was a great, humorous moment, because one of the things that I love about the Wally West version of the Flash here, and it's something when we talk about JLA Avengers I loved about Plastic Man. While these characters are comedic, first of all, they do they're very functional on the team, but they also say a lot of the things that we're all thinking, the everyman's thinking, and we get to see reactions to our commentary in that world. They tend to say the obvious things that we're immediately wanting said, and I love that. I think it's a great use of the character of Wally. And just making this it's light, but it never goes too far. And it was a funny moment, yet I would have said the same thing. Because it is funny. Now, when we go over when they finally do decide to go over to that evil world, we get to see evil versions of characters. And I didn't know if these were the when I first saw them, I didn't know if these were the second stringers or reservists coming in to take over for the JLA. We see right away Halo, Gypsy, Black Lightning, Elongated Man, and when I saw Elongated Man, I'm like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. These aren't good guys. And then they pan around and you finally start to see these other characters like Superwoman and people like that over there. Like, oh my gosh, we're on Earth 3. And we're seeing here other versions of villains that I've read a lot of stories with Earth 3, and I've never seen the kind of depth of exploration of alternate versions that we're seeing here.
Right. They've been implied that they were there, but I think, the only times is when they've talked about the crime syndicate basically wiping all of them out, in their takeover.
Flash pulling around Elongated Man was such a great... Because you had all these fights going on, but then you would see him zip by every so often with him. He'd maybe punch somebody along the way or whatever, but he was stretching this guy out like a giant rubber band, and it was so funny, because it would make sense what he's doing. He's tying him up so he's incapacitated, but he wasn't just doing that. He was helping out his fellow teammates while he was taking care of that version of Elongated Man. It was such a great bit, and to see with the Barry Allen history with the Elongated Man, it was great to kind of see those two characters paired together in that opening sequence. Now, was that Looker, the character of Looker? Excuse me, can I talk to you a minute? When she walked up to him, I thought that was the evil version of Looker who was taking over the Flash.
Yeah, that was something with some of the characters. I had no idea who they were, and she was one of them that I was like, huh?
Did you guys read any of the outside? I know, Jim, did you get the Showcase Outsiders?
No.
Did you read Kent Outsiders at all, Batman and the Outsiders?
I have never read The Outsiders in my life until the recent Peter Tomasi, the post-Batman Reborn. So I know virtually nothing about The Outsiders.
So I thought this was Looker. I'm just making a guess there. Actually, if anyone listening, if you know that was Looker, let me know. But I love this. Hey, is this the Jedi mind trick? This is not the Jedi mind trick. It's such a funny little segment. And then Wonder Woman punches him. And as this was going on, I'm thinking to myself, you mentioned before the old Justice League Unlimited animated series. I was like, oh, I want this weekly again. Yeah. That was so great to have episodic versions of the Justice League, because they had big sweeping epic stories. They had one-shot episodes. It worked. Very similar to a comic book where you would get that weekly fix of Justice League.
I don't know why they stopped it. Cartoon Network just seemed to consistently, pardon the expression, screw that series over. They wouldn't promote it. They put it on at odd times, and I don't know if it died for lack of viewers or what, but that was probably the best animated series I have ever seen. And a separate issue is why they haven't continued in that, continuity for the movies, because it would seem like base of their audience who are buying these, I think, were probably all devoted to that series and would love to see more. But anyway, yeah, I love it. I wish it were back. I wish it had never gone away.
I think with these animated features, and in a little defense of that, I think they're trying to make these accessible to not only the fans that would have watched any of the previous animated series, but to that new person who picks it up. Like, anybody could pick up any one of these, and they don't have to have had any previous experience with any comic or animated universe at all in order to enjoy these. So they're trying to make these something that would be accessible to both longtime fans like us, where they have those diehard geek out moments, but yet something that's you could hand to somebody completely new as an introduction to the DC universe.
And that's their justification, I'm sure. But I would want to live in a universe where the decision to get rid of that was never made.
Yeah. Well, and what I heard when I read on the net about that, and I don't know how true this is, but the rumor was, and it does make sense with where Cartoon Network headed, the problem with Justice League was you have to pay royalties then to Warner, and whereas if you have your own properties, which is the way Cartoon Network now has gone to so much original animation, they completely own that, and they make all the money off of it. So I think it was the decision to go to their own original properties for merchandising and all that versus having to deal with, this is basically them eliminating the middleman. And I think that's what happened to Justice League Unlimited was, and then you're right, Kent, they buried it. Now, I don't know if that's true. Anything that you read on the internet, you got to be a little quote-unquote suspect of how true is this. But if you take a look at what has happened since then and the amount of original Cartoon Network product, that does seem to indicate that is in fact the truth, that it would make sense. Like, why would we do this kind of series? We don't see a whole lot on Cartoon Network of new product. unless they're showing reruns of something, you don't see a whole lot of new product that is anything outside of their own original programming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Justice League went away, and my son about the same time graduated from Cartoon Network to ESPN, and I have no idea what Cartoon Network does now. So I'm totally out of that. But I suspect that would probably be the case, what you said.
One other bit in that fight sequence that I really enjoyed was when Gypsy put that hand through Luthor, and John flies up, the Martian Manhunter flies up, grabs her arm and goes, "Stop that!" Yanks it right out. He was really great in this. This was a great portrayal of the Martian Manhunter. Yeah. Very similar to when Kent was talking about his love of him in the Justice League Unlimited series. That animated series is where I began to really love and have a fondness for Martian Manhunter, the humanity of that character. And it's weird to say humanity of an alien character like that, but there was something when you got to see him acted out on the screen. It made me, I'm reading more comics with him. When a miniseries comes out with him, I want to go back and read some of the stuff that I wasn't interested in before. I've gotten the showcase volumes, but he's a character now who I'm very into. And it is due to his animated appearances and then things like Smallville, where the concept of the character has become cool to me. This video was a great showcase of what is interesting about having a guy from Mars who looks very different on our world. It's what I liked about things like the X-Men with mutants being so different, because it is, again, commentary on our society and how they would react to somebody who's a little bit different. And I talk to my third graders about stuff like this, because throughout, when we talk about history, we have to talk about some of our mistakes in the past and issues that have to do with how we reacted to people who were different. We talk about concepts of slavery in the past and how, this is something our society still wrestles with, dealing with people who are different, things that are different. And it's something that I think this is a great example of where literature is showing us the error of our ways from the past and the direction we need to head in. Rose and John is a great relationship that really kind of broadcasts all of this. And I loved that in this.
Yeah, it's Martian Manhunter is a guy that, I'm going to echo a lot of you guys' thought on how just the animated version of him really made me want to read more of him, want to get to understand him. And then it just, when he died, when they killed him off, that just accentuated, because I didn't have in paper version of him a long history with him. But I still felt like I knew who this guy was from everything from all the other media. And he's a guy that, really just was this great character. He was a great, I don't want to say supporting character, but he was really, in fact, the supporting side of this, because he wasn't in on all the main teams. He became the personal bodyguard for the president's daughter. And I thought that was just a really cool usage of him when they first showed his appearance, when they first showed who he was and what he was doing, when the evil version of Ali tried to kill her. And he stops in, saves the day, captures the bad guy, boom, and just announces that he's there. And I thought that was I'm like, wow, that is a cool usage of the character, a cool story plot, thread kind of going. And then when they went with that whole romance angle between him and Rose, that was another thing. I was like, wow. Okay, yeah, and so you have all this action going on around you, then you have this romance story going on right in the middle of it. It was a nice, just a cool story part. It was something that really had me going on with this this DVD as its own physical entity, as its own physical story. It wasn't just about the heroes coming in and punching the bad guys. It was about the society, about this culture, about these two people who find each other, who are like, soulmates and whatnot.
This whole made men concept. Yeah. It's funny how when you see that, being a bad guy sounds so cool. Because, hey, if I get Ultraman's eyes, he's going to give me powers. And you can see this kind of syndicate thing growing. I liked that whole concept. I liked the whole tree of, like how these people under them, and that was, there's no more than 50 at a time. Mm-hmm. I would guarantee you in this world that they get wiped out periodically in the same way that you would in any kind of crime, family and that type of thing, right? But it did sound like, I would love to see a version of Sopranos with the crime syndicate. Metahumans,
yeah. Well, that's what this made me think of. When they used that term "made men," it was obvious where they were going with the Sopranos mafia model. And then from that point on, I noticed how much Ultraman's speech patterns almost seemed to be modeled on Tony Soprano. That was an interesting way to go with this.
Yeah, they definitely went with a kind of a mafioso type of story element and just that character base, even just, you mentioned how with his voice patterns and just how they presented them, especially Ultraman, I got to agree with you on that one, that he did have more of a mafia Don, Don of Dons type of style and attitude.
The action doesn't let up in this whole thing. Because, we have these comedy moments, and one of the things I loved about this film, though, was that in spite of all the comedy, like with the Flash falling out of the building and stuff like that, those are very quick. He gets caught, and then Owlman's right after them, because there's this quick rebuild to his plane, Superwoman, the Shazam family with Billy, Freddy, and Uncle Marvel, the dark versions of them, which really worked in this whole thing. Clark and Lantern back-to-back fighting, and I loved how that kind of showed training and long-time combat skills together, where the two of them looked confident, like this is something they've done many times before on the Justice League, and they were holding their own because of it, because they knew that I can trust the guy behind me to hold their spot, so I'm just need to hold mine.
Yeah.
And that was great. I love those kind of moments. The Marvel's using lightning to attack in the sky to try and pull them out when they all go into that cloaking ship. I thought that was a beautiful visual sequence and a great way to show how the three of them together in a very dark world would have devastating power. The Marvels are often, because of, you take a look at their past and Fawcett and things like that, I think a lot of times they get misunderstood at the power levels they actually generate and how strong of a character they really can be. This showed how they can work in the DCU, and I think they're just great characters.
Yeah, I gotta admit something here. It took me a little bit to realize that was the Marvel family, by the way. I was sitting there looking at it going, who are they? What? Okay, these are obviously evil versions of somebody. I'm like, and I was sitting there just going, come on, thank Jim, thank you. And it took me, it did take me, a couple of watch-throughs of that sequence before I realized, like, oh my God, the lightning. Oh, I'm an idiot. Oh, okay. Because it was...
The main visual clue for me was the wristbands they were wearing. That was what tipped me off first. And, of course, then I started wondering, well why did they go with Uncle Dudley rather than Mary Marvel? But the answer apparently is that, according to Dwayne McDuffie, Superwoman is not Wonder Woman's analog. She's Dark Mary Marvel.
Oh, wow.
Really? That I didn't know.
Yeah, that's in some interview that Dwayne McDuffie did. That basically it generated a great deal of controversy as to why he would go that direction, but apparently that's the case. So you've got basically Dark Mary Marvel there with her made men being basically Cap Jr. and Uncle Dudley.
Wow.
I did not know that. Cool.
And that would make sense.
Yeah.
And you did see Wonder Woman fight an Amazon later on.
An evil Amazon, yeah.
Right.
And that's her analog. Yeah.
Rose Wilson, we see her speaking out, who is Ravager, speaking out as a good guy. We see Slade Wilson, our Deathstroke, as the President of the United States. And the bits where we go to the Jester Cave with Harley Quinn as the monkey,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed those moments. I loved seeing the Joker Cave, that he is kind of like the quote-unquote good guy Batman, in this universe. But that it is that toy theme. It's what you'd expect to see. You see a much darker, twisted version for our Joker here, but it is the kind of warehouse you would expect to see from our Joker in our world, and I loved that. It was kind of a nice little twist. I liked the Jokester in the Countdown.
Yeah.
And to see that character, that was one of my favorite one-shots from Countdown, the one where they focused on that.
And who the Jokester was. And
his background story. I thought it was a great one, and that's one that still stands out for me. Heads of the Six, when they showed them the Martian Manhunter, he does not do well.
No.
In any universe. Like, he's dead there as well.
Well, yeah, he was he got killed off at that opening sequence, which I thought was kind of neat. When they introduced this powerful character, boom, he's gone.
And when you saw him, did you notice what kind of Martian he was?
Yeah, he was a white Martian, right?
Well, that's not actually where I'm going here. He was a four-armed green Martian from the old Edgar Rice Burroughs Mars stories.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
I did not catch that at all, but that's really cool.
And his name, Jed Jarkus, it's written with the apostrophes like John Jones, but it's basically sort of a version of the character Tars Tarkus
from the old John Carter of Mars series, the Edgar Rice Burroughs John Carter of Mars series.
Wow.
Okay.
That's very cool. I did not catch any of that.
Did not catch any of that.
That's cool. Now, the team breaks up into groups of 2, and really kind of to divide and conquer. Now, Jim, with your love for backup, are you okay with the fact that they were paired up?
Yeah, actually, it was, I thought that was a good call. It's funny because when they went over there, they did go over with such very little firepower that I was like, you need more firepower for this. You do need...
They couldn't because of our world.
Right.
And that makes perfect sense for the story, because how can you leave our world defenseless?
Yeah. So that was the plus and minus, give and take of it. I did like, you do have to go, and I was glad that they didn't go solos, because you're going into some unknown fire pit. You need to have at least 2 people. It would have been nicer to have, a larger team, but, you deal with what you got.
The relationship with Owlman and Superwoman, a very perverse relationship. And it's not for them about conquering. It's about destroying. And, and Owlman obviously is taking it one... There's no point to anything else in his eyes. But in her case, it really is... She's crazy and embraces it and loves it and wants to be known for it. Crazy to the point where she's willing to embrace
complete
what Owlman's
destruction.
doing. Yeah, because she finds it... there's an attraction to her for it. And it really is a perverse thing for her. And that she was a twisted, deviant style character. And I liked the portrayal of that, because it was a neat little twist.
She went one step beyond going for the bad boys. It was even beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she goes for non-existence.
Red Arrow as a bad guy. And we see Martian Manhunter in the Flash, which, I know the Red Arrow, that was Ollie. It wasn't, but it was... Martian Manhunter and the Flash went up against Red Arrow, Black Canary, Johnny Quick, and Lobo in a really fun segment. I loved seeing the use of the shape-shifting of John. I love when we get to see him really kind of show the power levels, because a lot of times he comes off diminished when people don't know how to use him. And when you see him shapeshift and really do some of the things, like with teleportation intangibility, where he'll pop up behind somebody in a matter of seconds and really take down some really heavy hitters very fast, you forget how powerful Martian Manhunter really is when he's on a team, being a telepath and with all the strength and things that he's able to. Aside from that one weakness to fire.
Yeah, he's a tough guy. And I like seeing just that when they use his strength. And they use his power, because usually when you think of when I think of telepathic powers or anything like that, I don't think of a powerhouse physically wise. I think, okay, you got your mental powers, so that's where their strength is. They're not a tank. They're more of the controller type, blaster type deal, hang in the background, not get up there and throw down. John's the opposite of that. He has these mental powers. He has the intangibility, but he also has the strength of Superman. So there's some nasty stuff going on.
Yeah, I think that's something that, Martian Manhunter, when he was still alive in the DC universe, I think was clearly the most powerful being, in the universe almost. I mean, with all the different mix of powers that he had, the variety. And I loved that line in, what was it, Blackest Night #1 or 2, where Black Lantern, Martian Manhunter says, "Why do people keep forgetting just how powerful I am?"
And that to me is one of the things. I never much cared for the character. I didn't dislike or hate the character, but I never got him. I never understood. Once you see a good use of the character, if you go back and read a lot of stories, and you guys might be different than me, you might have always liked him, but for me, he's one of those characters that I go back now, I can't read enough of the old Martian Manhunter tales. I totally understand the character. I get the character. I appreciate the stories that have come before. I think for me, I only read him in team appearances, and if you don't see him used right in that team sequence where he has a chance to really get spotlighted, you lose what's cool about the character. Now I'm a Martian Manhunter. I want to see that character come back. I really enjoy reading him and knowing his whole vibe, because I think he applies in many ways to all of us. Everybody's felt out like a fish out of water at some point in time in their life, and this character really epitomizes that. And yet he keeps trying to fit in, keeps trying to get his spot. And in spite of everything that he's dealt with, he's also the classic turn the other cheek guy, because he's been dealt some real nastiness over the years, yet he keeps coming back and keeps trying to be a part of our world, even when he hasn't been accepted. And that's cool. I like that about the character. You can learn something about this guy.
Yeah, I think he is a character that, probably, went along with what I just said, but kind of like Superman. I think it's difficult for writers to really write him correctly, given how powerful he is. And I think, in a team setting or whatever, I think it is difficult. When he's done right, he's great.
You need the emotional vulnerability.
Yeah.
Now, Wonder Woman and Green Lantern, this was a funny segment for me, and I'll tell you why. I love Wonder Woman. I'm a Wonder Woman fanatic, but this is something I've noticed that's kind of a common theme with her over the years. Okay, picks up and throws the semi, with the lasso still attached. When does she retrieve this? This happens all the time.
Well,
It's a Wonder Woman thing.
She is as fast as Superman, so she could snatch it back almost like that, in a blink of an eye.
I know. The lassos, it's magic. Like Doug Henning with the magician. It's magic. It just kind of appears in her hand again. It is something, though. It's not exclusive to animation. It's happened in comics before. And I laugh when I see it, but it is one of those things like, do we really want to see multiple sequences where Wonder Woman's retrieving her lasso? That's not interesting. You can just move on and just assume that at some point in time off camera she grabbed it again. But I always love that because I'm like, we never see her do that. She just kind of throws the semi and goes on to her battle and all that because it would disrupt the action. But I was totally thinking to myself, like, when is she going to retrieve this thing?
Good question. I've got to confess, I've never thought about.
Now with Green Lantern, he says, I've got it with that Amazon. And Diana's like, no, she's mine. And this is where we see, and I didn't realize, that adds a whole new layer to me when I find out that in this particular storytelling, Superwoman is the Mary Marvel archetype, because that does add a whole new layer that this was her chance to go toe-to-toe with her quote-unquote mirror.
Yeah, and because it wasn't the anti-universe, she could punch her, so it was really cool.
And the question is that Diana in this universe who could punch her? But could somebody else have won the contest?
Yeah, that actually probably could have been Artemis.
Right.
Actually won, the contest, and who knows if Princess Diana was ever made. Maybe this universe, Hippolyta never made a Gumby, and so we never got Diana.
My God.
Superman and Luthor, that whole make me thing with Olsen, I could do that. Yeah, and the signal watch, that was pure geek out to me.
Yeah.
I was glad to see that they went to those levels with it because I've always been a fan of the classic Superman stuff, and to see this jacked up Jimmy Olsen that clearly was given powers because he really is Ultraman's pal in this twisted world. I've never seen an evil Jimmy Olsen in the Crime Syndicate.
Never seen the jacked up Jimmy Olsen or any of that stuff. I was just sitting there, I was kind of laughing, going, man, they roided him up.
Well, wait a minute. Wasn't there... Now, again, I'm not sure whether this was antimatter or Earth-3 or what the heck.
Oh, no, I know where he's going.
In Trinity, but there was a evil Jimmy Olsen that appeared in Trinity. Remember he tried to deceive them?
Wasn't that when they had that... when they went to that alternate...
Yeah, that
timeline because there was no Trinity at all.
Well, no. That was already there was the Trinity. That was on Earth 3. They went to Earth 3 because that's where.
Oh yes.
What's his name
was
right. from? Yeah, and they were trying to see that universe because Superman could punch that one.
Wow.
See, I'm now understanding. I now understand. I get it. By Jove, I think I've got it.
Now, I love this Luthor bit. This was one of my favorite moments. Superman is ready to go toe-to-toe with Ultraman, but Luthor's like, I can do this. If it means anything when you're gone, I need to do this. Luthor being a true hero here. He has to defeat Superman, and like I said, the fears that our Luthor had are realized on this world, but he's right. If they see this person who came from an alternate universe come in, an alternate Earth come in and defeat their Ultraman, when he's gone, what symbol is there going to be? Luthor is effectively becoming the symbol that inspires the people by using the blue kryptonite Ultraman. He tells people, hey, this is something we're not going to take anymore. And you see the people rally and cheer.
Yeah.
And that was just such a great moment.
Well, to go back to your parallel between, our Justice League going and helping these guys and going into Iraq. Well, I mean, ultimately, we can't just go in and fix that, and leave. What part of the whole debate is, getting them raised up to fix their own problems. I mean, that's a very important point there.
President Slade has some real concerns. Did you have something you want to say there?
Well, I was just going to concur because one of the functionalities that we're doing is working with the police in the area, Afghanistan and the Iraqi police departments, and just, their military as well as helping them out with the stuff. Because I've got a couple friends of mine who've gone over there, and the one guy is currently there, and they are retired police officers here, and they're with the various agency, the private companies over there, and they're working with the local police department and the kind of security forces over there. So it's we're talking about that, and I immediately popped in my head, yeah, we're doing that stuff. We're seeing that directly on some of the things we're doing with our military is doing with them, and especially just the overall, it's part of the mission that's currently going on now is the strengthening of their structure, their infrastructure, their political structure, and the various stuff like that. So, yeah, I hate to inject reality into the comic discussion, but it's just something.
One of the strengths of this, I think, is that you can
see,
you can connect,
times,
you can connect it to reality, and it doesn't even have to be current reality, it can be historical reality, where it actually does accurately mimic human conflict and the rights and wrongs of it. And I like that philosophically you could watch this depending on what your mood is and what your feelings are in a specific direction. You could watch this very differently multiple times depending on where your head's at and what your focus is.
Yes.
President Slade has some real concerns. Now, okay, this is all great that you guys are here, but what happens when you're gone? Who protects the little man? Their Justice League is dead. And this whole, are you going to kill the crime syndicate? Because that would ultimately, if you kill the heads of the families, this is going to eliminate a lot of my problem here. In this world, I can see that being, Slade's actually posting an interesting concern there. Hey, let's clean up my problem the easy way and just kill them all. Now, I like the way that it went and where it ended instead, and actually Superman and this whole crew, along with Luthor, actually do inspire a change that I think is very good for this world. But it was interesting in those moments. I'm like, if I were president at that point in time and these people came over and I was in this world where I've got to think of my entire country, I am the president. I'm not only protecting my daughter, I'm trying to protect all of my citizens by making very tentative relationships with a power that is, we're a small country compared to the size of the power of the crime syndicate.
And it's not even just the safety of the U.S. that he's thinking about. Mm-hmm. You think about it, he is also kind of acting as a guardian of the world, because if he were to throw down with them, if he were to, just continue trying this stuff, we're talking, it wouldn't easily flesh out over into the rest of the society, and the rest of the planet would be in danger, and just natural disasters, destruction, death, mayhem, just because they can, and just because to kind of show the U.S., hey, okay, you're coming after me, fine. Let's see what happens to your longtime allies, England. Boom! We just leveled the country. Now do you still want to fight us?
And they would do that. Yeah. That's the thing that I really liked about this exploration was, it's easy for Superman and them to come over and say that because, yes, they fought, like Superman says, I've fought bigger people than me. You don't understand that. But this guy's saying, hey, you don't understand. Yes, people have died. Yes, people have lost lives. Yes, there's injustices going on. But do you know how many huge ones I have stopped by maintaining these very, very loose relationships with them? Where we've got agreements that have saved so many lives. So it's interesting to see that. As long as they're making money, as long as they have power, more people are protected than are hurt. It's interesting. I like seeing Rose and John connect over their own mental sensitivity.
Yeah.
And her comfort level with that. And that was something that was, I thought it was a cool moment. There was the little budding romance between them. It wouldn't be what you expect. I did not expect them to go in that direction in a million years, and it was kind of cool. Owlman, what good is a bomb if you don't use it? And Superwoman's like, just tell me why. I'm a murdering psychopath, and part of it, that's part of my charm. And that whole just little relationship, the banter, I know we talked about before how their psychopathic relationship and how it worked, but only thing that means something. Destroying all truly matters. And, that's what he's saying. Destroying all is something, this is truly making my mark. It's the only way I can make my mark. How is she improving the ambiance by going along with this? Because he's right to a certain extent. Yes, he's making a mark, but nobody's ever going to know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a mark for who?
It's part of the understanding of a psychopath. You really...
Right. And you can't.
You can't. It makes sense to them. It's perfectly logical and whatnot, but it's not going to make sense because we're normal. We're normal for us, but still we're not these instruments of chaos, instruments of death and destruction. It's easy for us to look and understand the hero side because we do lean more towards that way.
With the White House and Ultraman, we had this quick bit where we saw that intimidation needs to be reestablished and fast. Yes, there's all these teams that are going around and doing something, but there's intimidation that, he's realizing, it reminds me of the movie Bug's Life. Did you ever see the movie Bug's Life?
Yeah.
You know where all the big bugs are like using intimidation for the little tiny ants to keep them in line? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. He swoops in and just says, okay, I got to keep the ants in line because if they realize that they've got numbers on us, and we do see at the end that they do kind of rise up in a similar fashion because of the fact that they're inspired by these heroes. But, this is Ultraman saying, I'm going to reassert myself here. Go ahead, use your nukes. What about your daughter? And those type of things, and he really quickly puts things back in line again for this president, and about how, boy, that White House is going to be a nice hangout for me when all this is done. But this was all about making sure that they don't rise up and support the superheroes because they're realizing we've got to look what these people did, these JLAers that came over in their small groups in such a short period of time. If they do that and inspire these people along with Luthor's help, it's all over.
Yeah.
It's all done with. And they're realizing that is going to be a real, genuine problem. Superwoman and Batman. Superwoman goes over there for that quantum trigger. Batman using the technology, and I loved where he was flicking the wrist, calling him out, get here,
Yeah.
It was such a great moment. But I loved that it wasn't a Batman running over them all. It was Batman buying time and using what he knew about the satellite and its defenses in order to buy time to get the reinforcements there.
Yeah. It was cool to see him call for backup.
Mm-hmm. McDuffie wrote a Batman that is very much like Morrison's JLA. He's cool. He's a strategist. And it is all about what do I need to do to make sure they don't accomplish their goal. The Aquaman that worked here, Firestorm, because I love seeing Jamal Eigel's design on screen. I've still got that up on my wall. One of the first times I met Jamal Eigel in 2006, he drew this great sketch, fully inked and everything, of his version of Firestorm. It was great to see that on the big screen, because I think that version of... I loved that series, and that's a version of Firestorm that I just adored. Black Canary, Black Lightning, and Red Tornado, kind of all stepping up to the plate. Careful, Aquaman, they are stronger than you. That remains to be seen. Now, this is where Aquaman works. Strong and confident. Yet we know that in spite of the fact that he has more vulnerabilities than a Superman or a Wonder Woman, the King leads by example. It's great teamwork going on with this league. One little shot from Black Lightning gives Aquaman the upper hand. Each bit that you see one hero quickly helping the other one, where they can, while still taking care of their opponent. And it does give them their advantage. This want to hear a secret from Black Canary bit. That to me was great because, in a time right now where Justice League has been in a transition in current continuity in comics, and we're seeing the team kind of come back together with some heavy hitters from the Titans who have now taken on a more mature role, with Dick Grayson being Batman and with Donna Troy kind of coming into her own, and we're seeing a lot of these Titans join up with, like a Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and those type of things in the league. We're seeing a stronger league come together, that we're going to see more team dynamics that we're used to. It's great to kind of see what makes the Justice League work. And this is a great example. These are leaguers that that was a great league. I loved seeing these reinforcements, these reserves come in, and the idea that these guys could eventually become members of the main league because of how well they worked. Aquaman was cool here, though.
Yeah.
This is the kind of Aquaman I want to see in comics.
I love this Aquaman.
And that was one of the things, this is a character who I think, when he's written correctly, he works.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys.
Nothing corny.
Yeah, it's funny because you say nothing corny, but I do like the corny Brave and the Bold Aquaman. Just that the arrogant king of the sea that, yes, now for this adventure I shall call the adventures of Aquaman doing this. Kind of that deal that we see in the cartoon.
You're talking about the cartoon Brave and the Bold.
I'm talking cartoon.
Not the one that we just saw in JMS's issue.
No, not JMS's issue. I'm talking the cartoon. I do like that regal attitude. in just that, kind of tempered fire that he is royalty. He is the king of the sea. He is the king of Atlantis. There is something beyond being a hero. Diana has that same quality sometimes as she is the princess of the Amazons. There is that royal quality.
Not that over the top. See, that works in the cartoon universe, and I agree. Actually, amen, I agree with you. In the cartoon world, that works. But in the comic world, I don't want to see that Aquaman.
Now, I don't want to see that extreme, but
Too
I
extreme.
do want to see a royal, regal type of mindset and or attitude. I don't want to see him thinking like he's just a regular, everyday hero. He is a king. He is a representative of his people.
We do see that in JLA Avengers.
Yeah.
With him.
Right.
And that's where it works not over... Did you like it in there?
Yes,
Is that what you were talking
that's
about?
what I'm saying. That's that right attitude that I liked in Aquaman.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's when you're... Because the cartoon version's very over the top.
Yeah, and that works only for the cartoon. But
Right.
I do like... I want a tempered version of that in the paper, in the comics.
Cool.
Okay.
Superwoman using the fight as a distraction and Bruce catching it. I liked that bit where we see Batman sleek out after her. It is. I keep forgetting at this moment that Batman still has a broken rib. Or was that... No,
No,
this is
he
before
doesn't have the
broken
rib. He doesn't have the broken rib.
Okay, he gets the broken rib after following her and going to their world.
Right.
But it was funny, like, the broken rib thing happened when they did get over to that world. And the original fight with Owlman, it wasn't until I just watched it again that I'm like, wait a minute, dude's still got a broken rib. Owlman beat him? Would Owlman have beaten him if he didn't have the broken rib?
I don't know. I always bet on Batman, so I'd say no.
Yeah, see, I agree with you, actually. I think that Bruce would have beaten him because of his Owlman has his own twisted dedication. I was going to say he's more dedicated. I don't know that you get more dedicated than destroying all life everywhere, in every universe possible. Because he's not just destroying it in one universe, he's destroying it in every universe. He's destroying existence as we know it. That's pretty dedicated. And I consider Batman pretty dedicated.
Yeah, that's...
I don't know that he's that dedicated. I mean, that's wow.
That's pretty hardcore there.
Because there's no tomorrow I might rethink this.
Yeah.
Because you can't. So, I don't know. So she gets the quantum trigger, and I love that she was attracted to Bruce in like a similar fashion to Owlman. Because again, there's that perversion. Actually, talking about the ribs, there was a perversion to that. Like she liked breaking the rib and seeing his painful reaction. Yet he was like a plaything. Like she wasn't going to kill him there. She would have been content to keep him around for hours. I could even see her having him healed to the point where he could at least survive, only to cause him more pain. Mm-hmm. Like that was her whole MO, and she was very into that whole thing. The assassination attempt on Rose, I knew somebody was there, but I loved how that played out. I didn't know if it was going to be... I should have... Did you know it was Martian Manhunter?
No, until it actually he appeared. That's why I thought that was just a great, usage, a great swerve. I was like, oh yeah, he's there. Oh, duh.
And I guess I assumed that there was going to be... I didn't think she was going to die.
No, but
I assumed somebody was going to fly in front of it or something like that. No idea that all of a sudden we're going to see a transformation that John had been standing there with her all along. I liked that. You sure that will hold her? I was thinking the same thing, and many times in comics I think the same thing. And I love when a comedic character, again, says the things that we're all thinking. She's wrapped up in this iron or steel
girder or whatever it is, yeah.
And you know the power levels that we're dealing with here. So I would be asking the same, hey, guys, what guarantee do we have that, I know Superman bent that and put that around her, but if he could bend it and put it around her, what's to stop her from unbending it and getting the heck out? Great question from Wally. I loved that moment. I love that this is something that Plastic Man does when we talk JLA Avengers. He plays that role where he says the things that we're all thinking. Bruce livid over the quantum trigger hidden in his world. And I love that he's saying to Luthor, why would you bring this over there? Why would you hide that? Why didn't you let us know? You come over to us, you ask us to come over to your world to rescue it. Yet you leave something that powerful in our world. You set us up for that moment. And here's the truth. He's right to question Luthor on that, because if they knew that was there and what it could potentially do, they would have hidden it. They would have certainly had more Leaguers up there protecting that, knowing that ultimately the crime syndicate's probably going to come after it, and they're going to come with some pretty... They came with Mary and the Marvels.
Yeah, they came up with some serious power, and had he known it, he would have had equally matching power there for him. And it could have very easily had his people look at it, the science team break it down, understand what it is, and hey, let's, really, hide this thing. We put a piece here, we put a piece there, we put a piece there. Really, make it tough on them.
Guys, I got to ask this. What would make you want to destroy all existence? Is there anything?
Oh, you just asked me?
Yeah. What would make you want to? What would make you want to destroy all of existence?
Honestly, I can't think of anything that would make me want to destroy all of existence.
For me, it would be the cancellation of 24. That's not going to happen, so I'm not worried.
Oh, hey, they're going to run out of time. They're eventually.
Are you certain about that, Sean?
Yeah. If 24 got canceled, I would probably I would start working on plans to destroy all of existence. But, I mean, the show's wonderfully successful. I don't see any problems, so there's nothing anybody has to worry about. It's one of my favorite shows on television. It's going to be fine, though. So.
I asked you again. I'm just curious, because I had heard that it was not going to be renewed.
Oh, guys, I got to go. I'm going to go work in my lab. But that is, I mean...
Yeah, there's no way...
No. You go back to being a psychopath, though, and dealing with psychopathic tendencies. And that was a theme throughout this whole thing that I really enjoyed. It was a portrayal of a villain who was a true villain, who really knew himself, though. Like, you knew his vibe.
Yeah.
You knew what was important to him. It really has to be all about him. And he cannot deal with considering himself as insignificant. And basically when that was thrust on him, that made him feel insignificant. He knew about all these worlds. The old adage, ignorance is bliss. The second he finds out about all these worlds that Luthor had found, like, Luthor isn't thinking about ending it all. Luthor was looking for allies. Yeah. Owlman wants to destroy everybody because they're there.
Now that I've had a couple of seconds to think about it, I mean, I think, and what you said, just then, tracks very well. I mean, I think it very, very much kind of equivalent to the question of, suicide. And the old statement that, that ultimately suicide is the ultimate selfish act.
Yeah.
Well, what you're saying here, if there's not going to be a universe in which I am, the top dog in every possible possibility, well, then what's anything worth,
And this isn't just suicide, though.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be enough for him to kill himself. He wanted to kill everybody and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think a similar motive ultimately in, as you say, the ultimate selfish act.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had moments where I've wanted to kill people, kill various, cause massive death and destruction. Like if I'm having a bad day and I just want to destroy, Iowa or something like that. Just have,
Why Iowa?
I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there just because.
But why did you pick Iowa?
I don't know.
I happen to really like Iowa.
Well,
if anybody listening is from Iowa,
I've never done it.
I love all of you.
I'll have thoughts like that. I'm driving down the road and pull up this next to this little car, and I just wonder, could I smash them off the road? And could I just knock them off? And I've had those type of moments and those type of thoughts in my head, but I never would do that. I never would follow through with it. I would never ultimately in the end. But then you start thinking, what would cause, what prevents me from doing that? Is it the fact that I know it's wrong? Is it religious beliefs? Is it legal beliefs?
That people of Iowa are really nice?
Yeah, Prius next to me really isn't a bad person. I shouldn't.
Did the Prius have Iowa plates?
I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. These are just random thoughts that I have had. I do admit I have had these type of thoughts where and it's been part of it's been like I'm having a bad day at work, or having some bad stuff at home, so I get this rage in me that just want to unleash it. But I've never gotten to the point where I would want to destroy all of humanity, all of existence.
Just Iowa.
Well, just like one area.
Of Iowa, or just one area in general?
No, just one area in general, and I just threw out the name Iowa just now off the top of my head. Okay. I honestly have no recollection of ever thought of going, man, I'd like to destroy Iowa. I just threw that out. You brought it up now.
It's a subconscious thing.
Just now, but I've never really had that kind of thing. It's just I don't know. It's one of those things that,
Hey,
you brought it up, man.
And bear that in mind, all Raging Bullets listeners in Iowa, Jim does not really want to destroy you.
Well, I certainly don't.
All right.
One of these days, we're going to take a road trip to Iowa so you can make peace.
Yeah. We come from Iowa. Music Man.
Wow.
Carter Hall scientific genius from a far-off world flies into action as Hawkman.
We had this wonderful, co-sponsored by friend of the show and colorist David Barron, Be Your Favorite Superhero Contest. Our entries are coming right after this. It's going to be the first of 2 segments on this episode where you get to hear all of the entries. And I want to thank everyone for participating. We had 11 participants. So I really want to thank everybody. On our website on Thursday night, we are going to have a poll up where you get a chance to vote on your favorite ones. All of the entries are actually on RagingBullets.com where you can listen to them. I'm going to put a poll up where you're going to have a chance to vote on who gets to be the grand prize winner. The grand prize is a month worth of DC Comics from David Barron, plus he's also going to be donating a very special extra comic box to it. Second prize is going to be a free trade courtesy of Raging Bullets from our sponsors, InStockTrades.com. You're going to be able to pick whatever trade you'd like, and we're going to have that sent out to you. And then the rest of the winners are going to get to pick from our comics grab bag. So everyone's going to get a prize. We were so happy with all of the entries that we decided that everyone should get something. But you guys are going to vote on who gets to be the grand prize winner and the second prize winner based on your votes on the poll. So please go to RagingBullets.com and vote. We're going to have them up for 1 week. It's going to be from Thursday to Thursday. By next Thursday, we are going to make a decision on who our winner is. So we'll give everyone a week to go and vote at RagingBullets.com. Check it out. Participate in that. But here are the entries in the first of 2 batches of them on this episode.
Hey, Sean and Jim. It's Deadpool Eddie Edmonds from your forum. I'm here to enter your best way to make our listeners make an idiot out of themselves competition.
Hello, Sean and Jim. Joker here. I just heard that you're having a little impersonation competition and thought that I might join. Sounds right up my crime alley. Well, you know who they always say that I sound like is Mark Hamill, so here we go. Oh, but I was just on my way to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. End scene. Yeah, that was pretty good. I know. What about that Australian fellow?
Batman, let me read the 10 things that I hear about you.
And you know what? Speaking of that Batman fellow, how about we get a little impersonation of him going, shall we?
You know, it's okay to slap villains around a little bit. Sometimes there's just no other way the conflict's going to end.
That's right. Bet you didn't know that Batman was Scottish. I just ruined your comic reading life forever. Well, after all, I am the villain. Toodaloo!
Hey there, Jim and Sean. This is Richard again, Lenten Savage on the forums. I enjoyed doing my last contest entry so much I figured I'd do another one. But I'm not going to tell you who my impression is of this time. I'm just going to rattle off some of my favorite lines of theirs, and we'll see if you can figure out who it is. Alright, here we go. Never fear, old chum. The he-she wonder is on the case. Holy capital punishment, or some such, to my bat-pole. I would make an excellent Robin if I might just get that in. I like the outfit, and I'm not averse to a crowbar to the cranium now and then. Oh, I'm a little sidekick, short and lean. I'll be replaced when I turn 18. Oh, the frivolity makes one wistful for one's missing tackle, most assuredly. He's broken my heart, fellows, when he chose to run me over and kill us all. I hate it when friends do that. Oh, say, disgusting hippies, I'm afraid we'll be needing your disgusting hippie van, if you don't mind. I like it when I'm scolded. It reminds me of Nanny, still rousing at 68 years of age. Everything I ever heard about Vegas buffets is true, true, true. Oh, look, they even have flying prostitutes. That's service for you. I've asked to be buried in a vat of taffy, cinnamon, or lemon lime. I don't care who hired us. That box smells like a sack of wet flatulence. Creamed corn, donut holes, silverback gorillas. Heaven help us all, gold-plated bed knobs. Pea pods, velvety throw pillows. Tuna salad hold the mayonnaise. Ugh. Save the monkeys, for heaven's sake, save the monkeys. I Are you all right, Mr. Floyd? Shall I do a dance to amuse you? Ooh, I should learn how to smoke. It's unhealthy, right? I heard once it was unhealthy. Neat! Oh, it's Santa Ragdoll, bringing stocking stuffers for those heterosexuals with enormous feet. Who ordered a busty meatloaf? I can't believe I get paid for this kind of thing. From flowing locks to shapely end, no one's cute as Ragdoll's friend. And if you're bad, I'd recommend beware my power, green Ragdoll's bend. Hey there, Sean and Jim. This is Lantern Savage from the forums, otherwise known in the Prime universe as Richard Turner. I wanted to put together a little impersonation of a DC character for the contest you've got going with Dave Barron. I guess I need to set the scene up a little bit, though. This is my impersonation of Batman investigating a crime scene when Green Lantern Hal Jordan comes down, and he's stepping all over Bruce's toes, and it's really bugging Bruce. And then Superman comes down, and he's trying to keep the peace. But the catch here is that the Green Lantern and Superman are the old-school Super Friends versions, while Batman is the Christian Bale version of Batman. And I'm very well aware that I'm probably going to sound like a complete idiot, but it sounds to me like that's pretty much the name of the game, so here we go. Am I going to walk around and rip your lantern down in the middle of a crime scene?
No, Batman, that would be very unfortunate.
Then why are you walking right through? Ah-da-da-da-da, like this in the background. What's wrong with you? What don't you understand? You got any idea about, hey, it's really distracting having somebody walking up behind Bruce in the middle of the crime scene? Give me an answer. What don't you get about it?
Well, I was just using my Power Rings light.
Oh, good for you. And how was it? I hope it was really good, because it's useless now, isn't it?
It's not a problem, Batman. I just have to recharge my power ring with my lantern.
For goodness sake, man, you're amateur. Clark, you got something to say to this rookie?
I didn't see it happen.
Well, somebody should be watching and keeping an eye on him.
Fair enough.
It's the second time that he doesn't care at all what's going on in my crime scene. I'm trying to investigate a scene here, and I'm going, why is Hal walking in there? What is he doing there? Do you understand? My mind is not on the crime scene if you're doing that.
I absolutely apologize, Batman. I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it.
Stay out of my crime scene, man. For Zod's sake. All right, let's go again.
Bruce, let's just take a minute.
Let's not take a minute. Let's go again.
Batman, it's fine.
I'm gonna kick your butt if you don't shut up for a second, all right? Do you want me to go trash your lantern? Do you want me to trash it? Then why are you trashing my crime scene?
I'm not trying to trash your crime scene.
You are trashing my crime scene.
Bruce, I was only trying to help.
You do it one more time, and I'm not walking back on that watchtower if you're still on the JLA. I'm absolutely serious. You're a nice guy, Hal. You're a nice guy. But that doesn't cut it when you're messing around like this on a mission.
Hey, Sean and Jim. All right, this is my entry for the contest. I'm not very good at voices, but here we go. All right. Oh, this is my favorite Teen Titan character. All right, ready? Here we go. It was Jericho. How awesome was that, right? Right? Yeah, I was doing sign language. Too bad you can't see sign language on a podcast. All right. Later, guys.
Hey, this is Matt Brandel, Stone Cold Matt. Just got done listening to an episode where you're talking about your contest and kind of got a little sidetracked and just got caught up on your episodes. So this is the 23rd and happy anniversary, by the way. Let's try this. I'll try to get this in one take. Let's go with water, please. Mine. I want one. A red ring? Mine. Blue ring? Mine. White ring? Mine. Orange ring? Mine. Oh, wait. I got one of those. Green ring? Mine. Black ring? Well, maybe. If I can put it on a shelf in a box or something, but, well, I still want one. Mine. Yeah, it was kind of quick and, spur of the moment, so. Well, happy anniversary again, and keep them coming. Bye.
This phone conversation is said before the events that take place in Green Arrow 31. Ollie's cell phone rings. Hello.
Ollie, it's Donna. Let's talk about this before you get into more trouble.
It had to be done. What he did to Leanne and Roy, God, Star City is a wasteland.
It doesn't make it right. You're a hero, for Christ's sake. Heroes don't do this.
I'll turn myself in when I'm finished. I have one more to go. Electrocutioner will be destroyed.
Oh, Ollie, don't. Let's say we find a spot to meet and forget about this for a while.
I can't think of that sort of thing at a time like this.
I know. I'll bring the Cupid's outfit.
No. I need to finish this. Then I'll serve my time. I'll go to jail.
There'll be a trial, and all will be forgiven.
Well, if not, as long as they can let me listen to Raging Bullets on my iPod, I think I'll get through it. I've got to go, pretty bird.
Ollie, no!
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
When we were recording, this was Kent's first time using Skype, and due to some connection issues on his end, we kept weaving in and out. But I did keep this little segment where we were debating over Batman and some of his actions in this DVD, and I thought it was so good at the time because it was honest reaction from it that I kept that portion and we didn't rediscuss it in the other sections. So I'm going to plug that in right here because I think it's a really good debate and hope you enjoy this as well. Jim, what did you think?
Well, it's funny because on one hand I enjoyed it, on the other hand there was one scene in the entire movie that I really disliked. But I'm like, can I let this one scene that I disliked ruin the movie? Because up until that one scene I was like, yeah, and I was cheering, I was hooping and hollering, and then that one thing happens and I'm like, what? That's not right. And it literally, I had to actually work through it, for me not to be angry and enraged. And it was funny because every time you talked about this, Sean, you said how much you loved it and I was the greatest, best one of them all. I'm thinking, how can you say that because of blank? And how can you because of this?
I think I know what blank is.
You probably do know what it is. And it just really threw me off, and I did work through it, so now that I do say I did enjoy this, I think it's a really cool story and it was a fun watch. But I tell you, it took 4 watchings of that scene, and also a lot of hours of me contemplating this. Had we had this conversation right after I saw it and not had time to digest it, this conversation would be completely different. I would have opened up with, what the hell are you talking about, Sean? This movie stunk. But because I had a chance to work through it and understand, I got kind of a rationale in my head that I was able to accept what happened and even keep it within my time frame and of my what
there is
Batman
a scene I have an issue with too.
Figured it was Batman. That is my biggest problem with this whole video.
Well, let's stop dancing around it. We're talking about Batman not letting Owlman die, correct?
Basically, almost in a sense, killing him, as well as the whole deception that he engaged in to basically sacrifice Johnny Quick in Flash's place, which, hey, I've done the same thing, but this is Batman, Yeah, I don't know. Both of those left bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, see, with the Johnny Quick one, that was initially one I had an issue with, but I was able to work through that one relatively quickly because Batman knew there was a risk, but he didn't know exactly what would happen to Johnny Quick, but because there was the risk, he didn't want to put his friend in harm's way, so he tricked Quick into being the target to opening up the gateway for him to go through. But the thing that really got me with Owlman is he lashed Owlman to the bomb. And he actually, when he sent the bomb to this alternate world, Owlman was attached to it. Now, if he had
Right.
sent the bomb and then pickpocketed Owlman's way to escape, would have been okay. But had he just, I don't know. He killed the guy. He flat out, when you lash someone to a bomb, you're killing them. But then again, my rationale where I was accepting it was he put him in that situation. Owlman could have turned off the bomb. He still had that time to click on the abort button and stop the explosion. And even with that device that he had there, he probably, using his intelligence, could have dismantled the bomb and actually made something there that would allow him to live and survive in the planet. But Owlman chose to let the bomb continue going and blowing up. That's the only rationale I can have on Batman's actions.
You have to remember, too, one of the things you guys are forgetting is Bruce is fighting with a broken rib.
Right.
Against a man who is easily his equal and has bested him already once in battle. We saw that during the initial sequence when the mirror people were fighting off each other, that he already bested him at this point in time. Bruce has no other choice. This is the fate of all existence. And this guy, Owlman, is passionately adamant that this is his goal. This is his chance to make his mark. Bruce basically only has one other choice at that point. It's either Owlman or all of existence.
True.
Which Owlman technically, I agree, could stop this if he wanted to. He's choosing not to. Bruce sent him to another world. Why wouldn't Owlman have stopped it?
Yeah,
Or was it the damage that Bruce had already done at that point with the Batarang made it impossible?
No, because if you that was one thing. In my rewatchings, I saw he very clearly had the abort button right there, and he looked at it for a half a second. And he goes, "It really doesn't matter," and that's when the bomb happens. So he had the chance to stop it. So that's the only thing I hold on to, that fact that Bruce gave his guy the chance to end it.
All Bruce really did then was send him and the bomb to another world with the option to stop it. So
Right.
did Bruce kill him or did he commit suicide?
Yeah, see, my initial gut reaction was Bruce killed him. Then, as I said, it took multiple watches of that scene over and over again, as well as just me sitting down thinking about it and just, rationalizing it, going through my head what he did. And that's where I come up with the fact that he didn't kill him, but he didn't save him. He didn't save him from himself, but he did give him the option that, had Owlman hit the abort button, he would have had a lot of massive tech there. And Owlman's resourceful enough that he could have taken that tech and made it into something either that would allow him to survive, maybe even come back to his own real world, or just something. There could have been a way Owlman could have survived out of that, because Owlman is kind of smart that way.
Now let me ask you guys this. Did you guys have the same problem, and I'll ask you this first, Kent. Did you guys have the same problem with Batman Begins with what happened with Ra's al Ghul?
I did, yes.
Okay. Jim?
Initially, no. Because I was thinking, it's Ra's al Ghul, he'll come back with a Lazarus pit. No big deal. And then it was funny, as I started
But Bruce
thinking...
wouldn't know that then.
Right. And that's what, as I started thinking about it, I did have an issue with that. But it really never... I never really was like, oh my God, there was never a chance that ending would have ruined the movie for me. I enjoyed that movie so much. And it really actually wasn't until... The most recent one, the Dark Knight, that I actually really started having an issue with the ending of Ra's al Ghul, because we had the ending of, where we kill off Harvey in the second movie. So I'm like, okay, they're killing off the Bat villains again. Classic movie mistake they made before.
Bruce didn't kill Harvey, though.
But no, Harvey died, though.
Right, but Bruce didn't kill him. There's a huge difference.
Oh, true. I'm not saying, had anything to do with it. It's just... I didn't really start thinking about Ra's al Ghul being dead until I saw Harvey die. Because then I was thinking, okay, the movie universe is making the same mistake they made last time with killing off the main villains. They're not letting the main villains go from movie to movie. And as soon as I had that notion in my head, that's when I again started thinking again about Ra's al Ghul, saying, you know what, they did the same thing back there. And that's where I started having more issues with it.
I adore Batman Begins. I have a bigger problem with Ra's al Ghul, where Bruce basically had made it Ra's al Ghul, where's he going to go?
Yeah.
There was no chance for that man to escape. So Bruce really does have a major hand in his death, in the sense that by choosing not to save him, he let him die. In this particular case, Owlman was at least given the option to hit the abort button.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I have, Owlman made the choice to let himself die, if you go off the whole abort thing.
Yeah. And
there was an abort option, right? Because I'm trying to remember back now.
Yes, there was.
Yeah, I definitely, and that's the only thing that kept me going through, and in the end, I'd say I enjoyed this movie, and I liked what I saw, just because I hold on to that option. Now, ideally, in my mixed-up little universe that's inside my head, I've thought of different ways they could have ended the movie, where Bruce just sends the device to the planet and not Owlman, and that kind of stuff. And I was like, but,
how would he have overcome Owlman to do that, though? That's my question.
Right. And that was the thing where I had issues with, where I was trying to come up with a way where he could do that. Feedback from the actual transportation or something knocking him out. I came up with really cheesy ways, and I admit they were really bad. So I'm like, I couldn't come up with a solid, really good answer. The only thing I did, come up with is Bruce sends the device back, and it sends the device to the other planet, to the other Earth, and doesn't strap Owlman to it. Owlman makes the effort and jumps into the abyss and goes with it, figuring to try to stop it and bring it back. And then he realizes he doesn't have his device anymore or something like that. It was the best way I could come up with where it would definitely not be Bruce's hand causing Owlman's death. And even that, to be honest, it's not the...
But did he cause the death if Owlman chose not to push the abort button? Again, I'm going back to that. Yeah. This is very different to me than the Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins, which is why I brought up the comparison. In that one, Ra's al Ghul had no abort button. Bruce had destroyed the controls. There was no abort button there. Ra's al Ghul died, and clearly Bruce had a hand in that, in the sense that he offered no option for survival. In this case, he sent him to this cold, desolate world, but the man could have hit abort.
Yeah. So as I said, this is one of those weird things, because I had a bigger issue with this one initially than I did with Batman Begins, but as the more I talk about the Batman Begins ending, the more I do have issues, but I still, it's weird. I don't know.
And I love that movie.
Yeah, something about that movie, though, I still accept it just because I enjoyed the movie so much. Now, I enjoyed this DVD, and I thought it was really cool. As I said, right up until that scene, I was loving it.
Well, you can enjoy something, though, and not like something in it.
Right.
Like, I'm totally getting the Owlman vibe when you said that. I knew it because that was a part I had issue with, too. But I still loved the movie. I thought this was a great animated feature. But I agree with you that if there's a point of contention there, that bugs me. This does read very much like... Did either of you guys read... Jim, I already know the answer to this. You didn't read Morrison's JLA. Did you, Kent, read Morrison's JLA when he was writing it?
Not when he was writing. I picked it up in trade, sometime after he left, but it's been several years since I read through the series, so I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to.
Thematically, the Batman in this, the strategist that is being promoted here, is very much how Morrison wrote him in his run of JLA. And that, to me, is what we're getting out of this. The whole bit with Johnny Quick, it was kind of a... And that was another issue where I'm like, would he really sacrifice somebody? But you remember, this is the fate of all existence. He tried using the handheld machine first, and Owlman had blocked it. The only other option was to use a speedster's vibrational capacity to open up a doorway, a gateway. And it was either Johnny or Wally. He did sacrifice him. Yeah. It's funny. I have more issue with the Owlman thing than I do Johnny Quick. But what do you guys feel? Like, Kent, what do you feel about that? Tell us your thoughts on Johnny Quick and what happened there.
Well, it was one of those things. I'm uncomfortable with it. But, when I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of like Jim, and I haven't thought about it, to the point of trying to figure out alternative scenarios or anything to the degree that he has. But, just a, kind of cursory thought, I really don't know what else he could have done within the story. Because, face it, Johnny Quick is one of the bad guys. He's one of the guys that has helped set up this whole threat to existence. And, versus, my buddy Flash. Which one am I going to sacrifice?
Yeah, and I hold on to just the thought that Bruce didn't completely know what would happen.
True.
He knew it was a risk, and he knew there was a danger involved. So if there's going to be a danger involved, he's not going to have his friend be at danger. He's going to have this other person use. And that's actually what I kind of held on to with Bruce. Why he did what he did. He didn't know that Johnny Quick would die. Now, in the end, Quick's like, you knew this was going to happen. Well played. Bruce never says, yes, of course I knew, and he
doesn't say no either. Though.
Right. So there's that little bit of, how much did Bruce know? How much could Bruce have known? Yes, Bruce knows a lot, and he's really cool with the strategy, but could he truly have known that's what would have happened?
Although, when he came out of it, I'm going to be honest with you, he was screaming for Johnny to stop.
Right.
And saying, Johnny, you've got to stop. Stop, Johnny, I'm back. So, I mean, he was passionately saying for him to stop. So, what were your feelings on that whole? Like, did you, like you did with Owlman, did you run through possible scenarios, or did you just let that one go? How did you...
Well, the main thing I got to get through the whole Johnny Quick stuff, I started thinking just... how much did Bruce know? And he knew there was I held on to the fact that he knew there was some danger, but he didn't know exactly what was going to happen to Johnny. That and he's sitting there. If he knows there's some danger to the thing, yes, it's Batman. Yes, he knows everything, but did he truly know that this would kill him? Did he just think it would be some danger? So it's like, we got to choose. We got a dangerous situation. I'm going to keep my friend Wally out of danger, and I'm going to go with this other speedster. And that's actually how I was able to logically work through this whole deal with Johnny and not have too much issues with it. I still had some issues with it, but it wasn't as bad as the whole Owlman thing.
I'm not giving Bruce a break on this one. I think he knew by the fact that he came out and he was telling him to get off. I'm not saying I'm disputing you. This is where my head was at with the whole watching. Bruce knew, and he has to live with that. I think the issue was he was dealing with a villain versus a hero. If it was a civilian, I would be really ticked. Yeah. At that point in time, I think it's Wally's job to step up there, and I think Bruce would have had to say, hey, Wally, here's what the deal is. But in the case of Johnny Quick, this is a murderer. In a universe that we saw earlier that Bruce is like, we got to take care of our world first, and to give up Wally is just not acceptable in that particular situation. Whereas if it had been a human, a civilian, if it had been Rose, for example, let's put her in there, because she's basically a civilian in this universe, in this timeline. If it had been Rose, I'd have a huge problem with what he did. But in that case, I think he knew that Johnny was in major risk, and I agree with Johnny. It was well played. And I think he tried to do whatever he could to get back as quickly as possible and get Johnny out of there with some hope that Johnny might survive.
Yeah.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
Here's the second batch of contest entries. This will be all of them. Remember to go to the website and vote for your favorite ones as of Thursday night, and we'll run them for a week until next Thursday.
This is Jared from the forums, or Dark Knight Jared, on there, on the forums. Clever title, I know. I am doing an entry for your contest. This is from another obvious one, Batman Year One. It is the thing where figures out his true calling, or father. I'm afraid I may have to die tonight. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to wait, but I have to know. How, Father? How do I do it? What do I use to make them afraid? If I ring this bell, Alpha will come. You can stop the bleeding in time. Another of your gifts to me, Father. I have wealth. The family manor rests above a huge cave that will be the perfect headquarters. Even a butler in training in combat medicine. Yes, Father, I have everything but patience. I would rather die than wait another hour. I have waited 18 years. 18 years since Zorro, the Mark of Zorro. Since the walk that night, and the man with frightened, hollow eyes, and a voice like glass being crushed. Since all sense left my life, and without warning it comes, crashing through the window of your study and mine. I have seen it before, somewhere. It frightened me as a boy. Frightened me. Yes, Father, I shall become a bat. And there you go. And not as comedic as the other ones I've heard, but I'd give it a shot. All right. Thanks for the opportunity, and I hope to who wins and all that. And love the podcast and all that, and bye.
Yeah, hi. This is Booster Gold. I'm calling to apologize to anybody who normally shops at the Walmart in Metropolis, the one over by Suicide Slum. Yeah, we had an accident. I should be a little bit more careful where I have my fights. It's going to be closed for the next 7 weeks as they do renovations. It wasn't my fault. You can blame Metallo. And if anybody asks, I had nothing to do with it. In fact, why am I even calling you guys? Damn it. Bye.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Eli, the creator of the Ragdoll of the Whatnot song parody. And this is my shot at the contest. Dead Man from Batman Blackest Night, #1. He just jumps into Bruce's body.
Grayson's Batman? Bruce is dead? Look, all I got is snapshots. Nothing makes sense. I can hear them, but whoever they are, they want me out of their heads just as much as I want to be out of theirs. Black Hand's got Wayne's skull. He's licking it, putting a cowl of black energy over...
And then Robin hits him in the face. All right. Thank you. Hey, again, this is Eli trying for the second attempt. Turpin, Final Crisis #1. You ask me, fire was our first big mistake. Like everything else the sad, stinking human race ever thought of, we take a good idea, we use it to kill ourselves. Here's me, way past retirement and 3 weeks out on the trail of 6 missing kids. Bright kids, gifted kids, who went out one day and never came home. Last thing I expected was to find me a super muck in the garbage. Back in the day, with the Metropolis Special Crimes Unit, I learned how to stop a superhuman dead. But me seeing this, me being here, feels like sacrilege. Let the space cops handle the fallout. I'm gone. Thank you, and see you later.
Hi, Sean and Jim. My name is Bill Beer. I'm also known as Gotham Knight on the CGS forums. This is my entry for imitating your favorite character contest. And just to set this up, I'm going to be Sinestro in Blackest Night #7. Just as Hal tries to jump into the White Lantern entity. No! You had your chance with Parallax! This is my duty! This is why I'm alive! I'm alive to lead us out of the blackest night! I demand your power, entity! And I will finally prove to the universe! Thou Sinestro of Cougar, I am the greatest lantern of them all! Destiny waits.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster!
Rose and John, and seeing the real man inside the outward appearance, that's the connection she has with him. You guys are, are you guys, like, if you were with a Martian, for that example, hanging out in a car and all that stuff, do you think, especially considering, his outward appearance, would you be more comfortable with him? Nightcrawler kind of explored this in the X-Men a lot, where he had that image inducer where he would have, a more human appearance. And this is, do you think you would be more comfortable, because her relationship with him has been very short. It wasn't a long relationship. Yet she's more comfortable with him in his Martian form than this facade that he put on. What do you think you guys would be? I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer there.
Hey, I'm all for green skin, man. I'd say, be yourself and be who you are. That's, kind of the same line of, the line of thought she has going there. It's like, this is who you are. You don't need to be fake with me or pretend, to be something you're not. I would want somebody to, release and just be who they are. Now, and it's funny when, as I say this, if someone was, actually, I think I'd be okay with, just, even if it was like a human who was, disfigured, or if it was a human,
because he does have a different physical. It's not just the green skin. Yeah. He has a completely different physical appearance.
Yeah. At first, I was thinking maybe I wouldn't, but if that's who he is, that's who he is. It's something about, once you've accepted a person for who they are, you accept for everything about them.
I agree.
It's sometimes we'll see specials and new specials of people who have various attacks and stuff like that. And the initial first time I see somebody, initially I'm like, whoa. But if I knew that person, if I was friends with them, if they were, confidant and or just someone I was hanging out with, I wouldn't want them to make themselves even more uncomfortable. So I would want them to be themselves.
Kent, what about you?
Oh, I concur. I was about to make a joke, bearing in mind, of course, if the alien were a female, I was about to make a joke that I don't know that I'd be as quite as ready to kiss them as Rose was. But then, hey, you remember the Green Orion slave girls on Star Trek?
Yeah.
I have to take that back. Anyway, I think I concur with everything Jim said.
You see, for me, I would hope that I would meet him one-on-one and have one-on-one opportunities like Rose did. Our media would tear him apart.
Yeah.
I hate to say that. I would hope that I would have at least had the opportunity to get to know the personality of him. Because I could see I'll be honest, you see a big green Martian come down, especially looking so different like he does. Is this guy peaceful or is he out to kill me? Now, once I've determined that this guy is who he is and all that, I would love to have that one-on-one opportunity to get to know him. But if I found our media would tear him to shreds, they would. I think it depends on what media outlet got a hold of him. You would hope that somebody would find a way to make money off of the positive side than the negative. And that's the true scary part of our society is it's all about the dough.
Yeah.
And if there's a way to make money off of the positive side of him, they will. If there's not, there's a lot more money to be made. Fortunately, there's more money to be made off the negative side. And I would hope that I would have the opportunity to meet somebody like him one-on-one, get to know them that way, and hopefully be on that side of the fence. But I could see why you would hide it.
Oh, yeah. And
I loved that with Nightcrawler. Yeah. I loved that with Martian Manhunter. I think it's a realistic exploration of the faults of our society. And I think this is where comics send us the message that we as individuals, when we encounter new people and we encounter new situations, need to go in with an open mind and open eyes and really try to see the whole picture before we make judgments. Because you can walk into something different, and if you allow yourself to have a preconceived notion without all of the information, you could head down a very dangerous path, and our society often does. But I do think this is where literature like comics, science fiction, Star Trek was a great example before, teach us that, hey, give something a chance before you head down that path. And it's a powerful message of this type of fantasy fiction where we get that and I love that. I love that moment between the two of them. There was something emotional about it. This is how we do it on Mars. Now, okay, if you just isolate those few seconds, staring at each other in a creepy way while holding the significant other's cheeks, I'm giving her a kiss. I'm going that route. But, when you see the whole getting to know you thing. Now, this is something that's interesting, though. I actually took that, taking the joking aside from it, I do like the concept of being so open with someone that you share everything. There's no secrets, just understanding. You see their good times, their bad times, their traumas, their mistakes, their triumphs. All of the things that are part of who they are and made them who they are from their childhood straight on through, you flash through that life. And I know when they do these concepts that you flash through the emotion as well. And you're kind of carried through that experience and you connect with them on a level that you can't physically. There's an emotional connection there, and there's something there. It was when I saw the two of them look at each other at first, because I had paused it there to write down some notes when I was looking through it again. I'm like, boy, if you just isolate this separately, he's grabbing her cheek, and both of them are looking at each other really funky in that moment. But it was great, the connection between the two of them and how that all played out. I loved that because.
See, you love that, but that would scare the heck out of me.
But see, that's just it. If you can, after that meeting of the minds, if you can say to each other after that you love each other, or that you're connected, and you still have that feeling of love, you know that person will stay with you through everything.
Yeah, see, but
because they've seen the best and the worst.
See, that's the part that with me that I would worry about them seeing the super freaky type of funky stuff that goes on in the back of my head, like thinking about destroying all of Iowa. That would not be the most acceptable thing for somebody looking in.
It's not.
And that is something where I'm like, but it's not really me. That's just stray weird firing neurons in my head, and that's what I would.
So
be
if you
worried
destroy
about.
all of Iowa, we can say it's not really you.
No. If I actually destroy Iowa, then yeah, it would be me doing it. But
you just
I
said
don't
right
think
now
I
it's
would.
not
But
really
I
you.
wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just something that's flies around inside my head. It's
Iowa.
not something that I would say, yes, this is a good idea. I think I shall do this. No,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just one of those things that goes on inside there. And there's various other topics that may fly around.
Have you
in my
ever
head.
been to Iowa?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't been there. I've seen movies and TV shows, and it seems like a nice place. And honestly, I wouldn't mind probably. I don't think there's that many bridges there. It's pretty level, flat type of area. So I'm thinking low population on bridges, which would be kind of nice. So it could actually be my wonderland.
So you're actually this is not a very good plan on your part. You are thinking that you are going to destroy a predominantly bridge-free area.
Yeah, I know. See, that's and honestly, I should look towards places like Pittsburgh that have high bridge population, or San Francisco, another huge bridge thing. That's where I should look.
Wow. Back to psychopathic tendencies. I did like this bit where, with John and her, do you think you can defeat them? If we can find them. And she's at this point realizing that she's finding hope in him and realizing, my father wouldn't want you to know this, but I'm going to give you the information that you need. And I liked that show of strength from her. I liked that she was a very strong character where she was saying, okay, my dad's the president, but I need to do what's right. I need to kind of step out of this shadow and really step up to the plate. Would you dupe Ultraman on any way, shape, or form? Would you take that risk?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
Would you dupe Ultraman?
Would trick him?
Trick him.
Oh.
Would you trick Ultraman?
I don't believe I would.
Because Owlman's doing that. He's like really trying to.
Yeah, Owlman's playing him, which isn't the smartest thing to do, because if Ultraman ever figures it out, he's going to come back after with extreme justice on mind. It's not going to be the superhero slap on the wrist. No, it's going to be rip your arms off and beat you to death with the bloody stumps type of deal.
But then, although I don't think they even referred to it in this movie, but in every other version of the crime syndicate / society, whatever it is, you got to remember, man, Owlman's making out with Ultraman's woman.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
and they didn't play off of that on this one.
Owlman is.
Yeah, Owlman is definitely like that, and they didn't play off it too much on this one, but he's definitely the type of character where he would do that. It's not a smart move, because this guy cracks Ultraman.
Yeah, he snaps. That's it.
Yeah,
he's
going to crush Owlman's head. I think he has, in different variations, severely hurt or crippled him or things like that because of this type of actions. Superwoman, when I get loose, I'm killing you after Batman. That punch from Diana was such a funny bit.
Yeah.
Just leaves her boom. and it's very justified. When they break into their facility, does this seem a little too easy to you? I love the years of experience. This was something that worked for me. It was consistent throughout the entire movie experience. These are veteran heroes who have been teamed up together and working together for a long time. This is what it means to be a member of the Justice League. You are the elite of the DC universe. Yes, they've had different variations. Yes, but at its best, no matter what version of the Justice League we're dealing with, the best teams of the Justice League are the ones where you feel like these are the top tier heroes. They know their game. They've been doing, there might be one or two newer characters in there, which I remember in the Morrison JLA run, it was kind of technically Wally, although Wally had been so established at that point that to call him new, but Kyle clearly was the least experienced out of the batch. But, Wally had been around long enough, but for Wally it was about growing into the realization that he deserved to be there. he at this point in time had been around for so long that he was every bit as much a veteran as Barry was when he was on the Justice League before him, and I loved that exploration. In this particular case, I get the same vibe. You know, where Wally's kind of the guy trying to, you know, he's a little bit more of the jokester and things like that and the whole thing, but yet in every battle, he is proving that he's a veteran. He's multitasking. He's not just thinking about himself, and not, you know, when Wonder Woman rescues him, he rescued just as many people prior to that.
Yeah.
When he was whipping around with elongated men. I love the teamwork aspect, that these are veteran heroes who you don't see make many mistakes at all. And if you do see them make a mistake, there's somebody there to catch them. And I like that moment.
Yeah.
It's something that really worked for me. When the force field goes around them because they're captured, Clark spinning through the floor and popping back up again without hesitation. I loved that was on the fly. I love there wasn't this moment of, how are we going to get out of this?
Yeah, it was just boom, boom. You know,
that's, you know, where I like those moments with other teams. You know, where a team's less experienced, you see them kind of meet and kind of, you know, chat about how are we going to get out of this and all that. There's none of that with the Justice League. They all just know what to do, and they do it. That was great. It was such a powerful moment. Now, Owlman versus Batman was a fight I really wanted to see, and I was so glad we got to see that start to play out in this. I was glad that it showcased Owlman's abilities, because a lot of times when we've seen these two duke in the past, it always seemed like Owlman was a little bit less than Batman. I liked seeing him as more of a direct mirror. And because Bruce had the broken rib, that gave an edge.
Yeah. And also, you think about it, you know, the edge of having no issues with killing, you know, gives Owlman a little bit of edge, because he's not going to hold anything back. He's not going to hesitate. He's going to go for explosives as compared to batarangs, just more deadly force over just subduing force, which, you know, does also give him a little bit of an edge. Plus, Owlman has more reliance on the gadgets, because his suit seemed a little bit more charged than Bruce's. So he got a little extra boost that way as well.
Yeah, like on the planet where he was fighting Wonder Woman. And I think it was obvious there that, you know, apparently his suit's some kind of exoskeleton that, compounds his strength.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because he was holding his own with her and taking punches and delivering, and just there's definitely a level. Even Owlman had that comment when he was talking to Bruce first time. You should have sent your flyer. He would have had a better chance against me.
Well, that was during the bomb.
Yeah.
At the end, and you know what? I love though that he came back and he talked about this is something Morrison and Wade explored when Wade took over during that run that he did as well with the Ra's al Ghul story. They explored this concept that, yes, Batman is the consummate strategist, but a lot of times his weakness is his lack of trust of others around him. And this was something that really blew up in Batman's face, not just in the Justice League, but in his own books during this time, during Bruce Wayne Murderer and Bruce Wayne Fugitive. And we've seen a change of this in his operating since 52.
Yeah. When
he came back. When 1 year later we got to see this character kind of come back and work a little bit more with Team Batman. You know, it was more Batman and Robin at that point, and reliance on a lot of these resources around him. But this was a weakness right here. That moment with Owlman, how would it have played out differently if Bruce hadn't been the one to go?
Yeah, if it had been Superman going through the...
Doesn't make sense for the guy with the broken rib to go.
Yeah.
No.
Hadn't really thought about it, but yeah.
I loved the high-speed battle where Johnny Quick was throwing shards of broken equipment at Wally, who was spinning around in a tornado-like fashion and putting it back together.
Yeah.
I love how he handed it to him. And yeah, it was a comedy moment, but it also served a purpose in the battle. It distracted his opponent, and he took advantage of it. So I love that the comedy moments with him don't go so slapstick where Wally's useless. It's just the opposite. He uses those things as a distraction. And we do see comedy being something that overcomes fear. It adds a little brightness to it. And I loved how that worked with him, because I always saw a very cool Flash in this. I never felt that he was anything but a powerful figure who belonged on the team. He'd throw out one-liners and things like that, and are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Yeah, that kind of stuff was funny, but when he got into a battle, he did his part. He was never a weak link on the team. He was always a strong member of it, and I liked that. It was a good, well-written portrayal of the character. It does fit more the animated universe version of him than the comic book universe version of the Flash. which is something that I liked, because I always liked the animated universe version. And you talked before there was an animated Aquaman, for example, how that's very different than the comic version. I do think that this is not quite as extreme as that, but it is a definite difference over the Wally that we do see, and we have seen in the comic books, even in the Wade and John's run. He wasn't slapstick like this or anything like that, but it worked. It works in this version.
Yeah.
Because it does show confidence, even though he's being funny. That we get to this whole bit that we talked about earlier with someone vibrating at the right speed and how you're limited, and he pulled a little trick on him. I don't know that we need to go heavily into that again. But like we said, Bruce with that broken rib goes after Owlman, and we have that moment. And I love the exploration of this world. What series of events led that to spinning out of orbit? Because it's this desolate world, Earth Prime, which that was new to me. I've never seen an exploration of this prime Earth being something that was so...
It was non-existent. It wasn't an actual Earth. We're used to seeing Earth Prime being our world where there aren't any superheroes, aside from Superboy Prime. But this was a completely different look, and I actually liked this better than saying our world is Prime, because this whole world that has nothing in it, but it has everything in it. It's the source of everything, but it has nothing. And it had the kind of super freaky look to it, and I kind of was picturing a woo kind of sound effect going on.
Can you do that again?
Woo kind of sound effect going on as looking at it. But it's still I liked this version of Prime than other things we've seen. I like the fact that this beginning of it all was what it was. Something a little bit freaky, a little bit funky.
Because it was just devastated because of being thrown out of orbit. And Owlman justifies it as saying it's probably something humanity did. And that's another interesting commentary about how we talk about how we are destroying our world.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting little parallel.
Yeah, I picked up on that. What was it? Owlman's comment at one time, mankind is a cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that philosophy sounds a lot like what you hear today. But I'm not going to go off into a political commentary.
No, but it's interesting though. Again, where depending on what your view is of that, you could again watch this DVD in a very different way. And I do like that about comics. I think this is where, comics and the comic book characters, and I'm glad these DVDs are exploring these concepts. These are concepts that you read on the comic book page. This isn't something that was introduced exclusive to the DVD. You find these same kind of highbrow, high-end concepts in the comic book page where, depending on how deeply you think about the story and the events that the characters are thrown into, you can get into these political type discussions. You can get into morality discussions. And the comic book doesn't necessarily have to say you're right or wrong in one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Metaphorically, it can let you, as the reader, kind of take it beyond the page. You can, do some inferencing. You can make your own connections with the story. And I like that. It's something where I'm glad these DVDs are exploring it, because I think somebody who's not reading comics right now who gets into this can take a chance on a comic book, and they're going to see the same kind of storytelling that's here. And it gets really deep. This DVD, I love the fact that I've watched it multiple times now, and each time I've gotten something a little bit new from it. It's a deep story, and I'm glad they pulled Dwayne McDuffie in because he gets it. And that was cool. It was a great script for that particular purpose, and this is what I want to see more of these.
It is funny with that whole talking about mankind being the cancer and all that stuff. I was just half expecting them to say, Mr. Anderson, doing the from Matrix kind of deal, which, that was something that popped in my head as well.
But I mean, that's the great thing about this, is it connects so much to pop culture as well. We talked all the way through the whole thing that happened with Johnny Quick and the death and all that. So let's go on to President Slade, because he shows up due to the attempts on the life of his daughter and uses now the nukes as a threat, which he was so asked to do earlier. But I'm glad to see this guy step up because, hey, you know what? He's realized my daughter was threatened. None of these alliances that I have with them are ever going to stick. It's a ticking clock. It's a ticking time bomb. Eventually, they're going to turn on me. And am I going to settle for my daughter being at risk because she's speaking out, or am I going to stand up? And it was great to see him stand up in this moment, and for them to see that there's been some inspiration by the fact that these heroes have made progress against the crime syndicate because they stood up. And could this world change for the better? I would love a sequel to this. This is where I would love this to be a series where we, maybe 2 years down the line in the Justice League series, you see the return to the crime syndicate world and see, has there been any progress there, or did something go awry, or what happened? I would love to see a continuation of this.
Now, question for both of you, and either one. With the ending between John and Rose, where, and I love the fact that Wonder Woman went up to him and said, "What are you, an idiot? This is the stuff we fight for. If you love here, stay here with him." And he chose to go back to his world because he made a pledge to protect,
That wasn't what he said. He said that he lost one home already, meaning Mars, and Earth has become a home to him. For so long, he strived for that to become a home.
Right.
And he went back because he didn't want to lose another home. And he's fighting to save our home. So that was the reason why he went back. Because this wouldn't be his home. This is not his home.
See,
could you give up your entire universe for one person? It's an interesting.
Well, that's my question. Could you?
How long had their relationship been going on?
See, for me, no, go on.
Well, I was just answering the question. A couple of days, maybe, if that long.
Would you give up your friends, your family? Well, in this case, he has friends who are like family.
Yeah.
At this point, could you give up all of that for somebody you've known for 2 days? Can he come back? This was their first time traveling to that world.
I was, I didn't know what choice he was going to make, when she went up to him. Because they had so set it up for him to stay. I mean, in that earlier scene that we talked about, where he and she were in the car, and they had basically established that they were two minds that perfectly met. Two soulmates, to use that term. I really didn't know what choice he was going to make the first time that I watched this.
Now, I will say this. If it was my wife, yes. If it was, there's been relationships that I've had where they've been long enough that I would that be a consideration? Yes. You seem to, Jim, you're kind of, go ahead, what were you going to say?
See,
I'm curious.
Actually, I'm for John staying. For John staying on that world. And it's weird because I don't have the most positive viewpoints on love. I really don't. I have more of a negative side of it, just personal experience. But seeing him, just that connection, because we're talking, this was beyond just hey, that's someone cool, oh yeah, kind of hanging out. There was that connection beyond just emotional. There was that mental connection. They had the Mars meld. They had beyond something just a couple day romance. This we throw out the word soulmate, but they had basically a lot of scientific evidence showing that yes, these two are two that could be that strong. Add to the fact that John is a hero. Here is a world that only for all practical purposes has one superhero in it, and that's Lex Luthor. He could really use having John's presence there. That, you got just the call of duty, the call of the heart, call of just the general, who it is and what he can do for that world. I probably would have stayed, especially once.
Unless he saw something freaky in that Mars meld that made him want to go.
Well, that may be. In all reality, maybe John did see something funky in there, and that's why he really left. He probably looks at Diana. Hey, Diana, shut up! I'm trying to get out of here.
She wants to blow up Iowa.
There could be something freaky there, but if he didn't see that in her, that I tell you, I actually, if I was in his his shoes, I probably would have stayed.
I'm going to change my tune. I agree with you. With the Mars meld, that actually changes everything. Because thinking about how deep an emotional connection that was between the two of them, in that 2 days, because Kent and I were totally in sync. What's changing my mind a little bit is the Mars meld. If it really is such a deep connection that it looked like, where you get to see all the strengths and weaknesses, the faults, the trials, the tribulations of that person, then at the end you can still say you love that person. You're nuts if you let that go.
Yeah.
So I would guess you would learn a lot more from the Mars meld in 2 days than you probably would in 2 years of any other relationship. So
or a life.
Yeah, no, you're right, because there is no secrets, right? Is that the way you guys are taking this?
That's what I took it, yeah.
Yeah, that was full disclosure, 100% upfront, boom, this is who I am.
So if you can say I love you after all that...
Yeah, that's powerful. That's something
you know that's your... You talk about soulmate, you know that's that person.
Yeah.
The romantic in me, no, I would too. I
just want to give him a smack in the head, say, knucklehead, what are you doing?
And you can protect that world.
Yeah.
And make a change.
Yeah, that's the reason I said, when I first viewed this, when they were, set that up there at the end, I really didn't know where this was going. I could very easily have seen him stay.
Yeah, he's a dunce. No, he is. He's a dunce in that one. Jim, you've sold me on this completely. I take that in a completely different direction now. He's a dunce. In that type of situation, if you let that kind of romance go away, you're a dunce. Unless, like I said... He saw something freaky.
Blowing up
maybe there's a
Iowa.
sequel we're going to say, you don't understand. That girl's nuts.
Yeah, if he saw that, then sure, I can understand.
She's got a fear of bridges and she wants to blow up Iowa. It's like, I got to get out of here. And she sings terribly.
Hey, I'll have you know, I've had people say they love my singing.
Yeah, that's probably people who agree with you they don't like Iowa. That doesn't make them right either.
How come I got this feeling I'm going to get me hate mail?
Consider one other aspect of this.
Uh-huh.
As he told Diana as they're walking away, we'll probably get back, and basically her analog is probably a supervillain.
Yeah. When he said that, he said that with my luck she'll be evil.
Yeah.
That was such a great line because it's true because we know Rose.
Rose is Rose. She starts off evil, but I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
nowadays,
it's questionable now where she's at, Ravager. We'll see where she's at with the new Titans series, because it looks like it's going to be villains for hire. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know. We'll see what that looks like.
Yeah.
When they go back to our time, the funk with Wally, I can't believe you kept that thing. Why a plane? You can fly with the invisible jet. And it was such a great moment because it does play in comics nowadays. And I loved her answer.
Spoils of war.
Yeah, and the whole thing, you have a car.
Yeah.
That was such a great justification. I was glad to see a justification for the invisible jet. Makes total sense to me right there and then and there. It totally works. Keep it. And I love the idea that Bruce and Clark, this is a great moment with Batman and Superman. You see the two of them together where the respect they have for each other, both of them let their guards down. They both admit they were wrong. They both admit they were right. And, they connect over that. They compromise, and they wind up in the middle, and this is actually going to be good for the league. We see how these two leaders now all of a sudden have said, okay, here's where we were wrong. Each of us was wrong. Here's where we're both right. Let's expand this league. Let's bring these new people in. I already started. And you open up the doorway, and you see, Aquaman standing there, Firestorm, Red Tornado, Black Canary, Black Lightning, just some great bits there. I loved that moment. It was great to see that and those particular characters. I would love to see a continuation of this and actually see those characters interacting with the league now.
Mm-hmm.
This was and that to me is the sign of. And when you were saying to me, why did you think this was so great? It was because at the end, and I agreed with you on the moments you're talking about with Owlman and Batman, all the way, and then with Batman and Johnny Quick, where they were questionable moments. In spite of all that, when you take that scene and that sequence, but everything else afterwards and how they learned something from this experience and where it grew, I wanted to see a sequel. I wanted to see more. Even though there's a part that bugged me, and we kind of talked that out, that's why I said this was one of my favorite ones, because I immediately, when it ended, wanted to see more. And that's a sign to me of a very good production when you want to know more about this universe.
Now, with the voiceovers and the voice actors and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did you guys feel about having different people doing the voices than in the JLA? Going with completely different people doing the voices. We didn't have the classic, voices, even though they had a very similar look to what we're used to. It had different voices.
Well, let's see. It's William Baldwin as Batman, Mark Harmon as Superman, Chris Noth as Lex Luthor, Gina Torres as Superwoman, James Woods as Owlman, Jonathan Adams as the Martian Manhunter, Brian Bloom, Ultraman, Bruce Davison as President Wilson, Josh Keaton as the Flash and Aquaman, Vanessa Marshall as Wonder Woman, Nolan North as Green Lantern and Power Wing. James Patrick Stewart, Johnny Quick and the Jester. Carlos Alazraqui as Breakdance, the Secret Service agent, and Richard Green as Jimmy Olsen. It's funny. I think what hurts me is Batman the Animated Series ran for so long, and the same actor played Batman in Justice League. We have Tim Daly, who played Superman in the Superman the Animated Series, and then played him in Justice League. I'm so used to those voices. And I agree with what Kent said before, where he thought it was Michael Rosenbaum. I think the actor who played the Flash did such a good job of capturing what Michael Rosenbaum did that he nailed. It felt like it was Michael Rosenbaum, and it was a good choice considering the script for the Flash. I don't know why you would play the character any differently than he did. I enjoyed this. I do find that I have to get used to the different voices for the characters, but after I got used to them, I got into the story. Kent, where were you at on the voice acting? You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I did get more used to them as I watched it. I watched this a total of 3 times, and it really bugged me the first time, the different voices. I'm blanking on the name of the actors for Batman, particularly on the original Batman, Justice League, all the way through. But he is
Kevin Conroy.
Right, Kevin Conroy. It really bugged me, going the first time I watched this. Subsequently, it didn't bother me as much, but I would still have preferred the traditional animated voices. I
know why they did it. I'm sure that they made sure that they used different voice actors and it was said if you watch some of the extras on it, it was said that one of the reasons why, what they were trying to do with this is not make another Justice League Unlimited episode. This was something that was separate. Mm-hmm. So if they'd used the same voice actors, it would have been immediately directly connected to that series. Well, and they did not want this to. They did not want this to be in continuity.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
They did not want this to be in continuity with that series. So that was something that they actually did state on their own commentary about it. This was something that Bruce Timm said. I knew we were going back to this. I did not want people to feel like this. So I'm sure when they were choosing for voice acting, they were like, we can't use the same actors because people are going to directly connect to that series. And it clearly wasn't because it is not in that continuity. But go ahead, Ken.
It's not so easily could have been. Just a couple of tweaks here and there, and this would have been a perfect transitional movie between the original Justice League and the Justice League Unlimited.
But that's the whole point is that they
what they wanted to do. But
the whole point is they were trying to make a new series of films, and none of these films connect to anything animated that was done previously. So they're trying to make a series of films that stand on their own, which it does make it interesting. It does make it interesting that they are trying to connect. They have those episodes on there as the bonuses.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to disconnect it, and that's the one area where I have a question mark. I'm like, if you're really trying to disconnect it, why have the second disc? Why not just have the one disc, throw on that Spectre, and not throw on those episodes? Because to me, it's like you're automatically going to have comparisons to that. The episodes they put on there were great, too, because they put on a lot of the multi-part episodes. So, I mean, it was a cool bonus disc. I own those episodes like a multiple times over now, but I do think it was a very cool bonus disc. If you're separating it, you would think you wouldn't put those on because you don't want to confuse people.
Well, it gets to the question of whether or not you agree with what they're obviously and by their own statements trying to do, create a different an independent story. Personally, I would prefer that they just make independent movies but within the same continuity, and I don't know that would be that would be that difficult to make it consistent. I guess is what I'm getting at. Make it consistent.
It is consistent with what they've already done, though, when you take a look at the previous releases. Like Green Lantern was a brand new movie, Wonder Woman was a brand new movie, so this is actually consistent with the other releases in this line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that does get to something that I don't agree with their basic. It's not so much I don't agree. It's I wish they would just. My own personal preference would be that they stay in that continuity that they had established. But I enjoy them either way. I enjoy them. I love seeing them. So
continuity does become an interesting discussion.
If it does bring in extra viewers that possibly would have just passed it over if they just said, "Oh, it's just another Justice League episode," then I guess it's a good thing. I'm not sure the net effect makes that much difference, but anyway, back to the voices. There was one thing that occurred to me. I guess they did it in order to. Well, maybe I don't know why they did it. I'm not sure why they didn't just use the same actors to voice the doppelgangers, the analogs. In other words, have the same actor do Superman and Ultraman. They apparently, and I hadn't realized this until you were reading the names just a minute ago, had the same actor do both Power Ring and Green Lantern.
Well, Ultraman and Owlman aren't necessarily the same.
Yeah, they're not.
Person.
That's not Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne in the alternate universe. Those are different people. So that's why they went with the different names. And I was actually really glad that they did do different voices for them. Like when we talked about with Wonder Woman with Superwoman being Mary Marvel, not Wonder Woman. So there's two different voices. Same thing with Ultraman.
Very much makes sense, to have those as different. But okay, I had assumed. I guess I have always been mistaken. I thought Ultraman was Clark Kent.
No, he's not Kryptonian, I didn't think. But I don't know how they're playing out in this world. But that was one of the things that I kind of wished that we would have found out that Owlman was like Thomas Wayne, not Bruce Wayne. If one point in time where Bruce let him know, hey, I know who you are, kind of deal. Where Bruce figures out who he is and, what's the deal with him.
Well, now...
That could be the case, because I believe you're right. I think isn't in the original, I say the original, but Grant Morrison's isn't, as you say, Owlman actually Thomas Wayne rather than Bruce? Or I forget. It's on my shelf in yonder, but I forget what the relationship is. It's integral to that story, though.
Yeah, I don't think that is. I think that isn't Bruce, though. That's why they went with a different voice and, the kind of... And that was something I kind of liked. And even
that would make sense, yeah. Okay, I withdraw my objection.
Oh, no, hey, everybody's got it. It's
I'm looking it up, though.
Yeah.
If you look at the antimatter universe, which this isn't,
right?
He is Clark Kent there. But it looks like if you go back to the original Earth 3, which this is more based on, he's Jur-Lee, based on... It's a different version of Jor-El, so he's got different parents. It's not Jor-El's not his dad, so he is a different person. So it becomes real tricky.
So we're dealing with a Kryptonian, just not our Kryptonian, basically.
Yeah.
Which actually would make sense for the movie because Luthor was able to stop him with a version of kryptonite.
Blue.
With blue kryptonite. So we would have to have a Kryptonian there.
Now, looking at Owlman, he's Thomas Wayne Jr.
Okay.
Oh, right.
So,
something there. I couldn't remember the details of it.
Right. So it's... And there was an issue... I guess the issue was... Young Bruce was killed along with his mother. So Bruce is actually dead. There was one... He's like the older brother, or... in that universe.
Okay.
Or a brother of Bruce Wayne. And that's the difference where the deviation occurs.
Yeah.
So it's not actually the same person. So I'm glad you brought that up because it's an interesting discussion point. Are these the same characters? And that wasn't something that and I don't think they had enough time because these typically run an hour and 15 minutes. So I think they didn't have enough time to
flesh it out.
Their origin.
Once
there was
again,
no room.
If this was a weekly series, they could have fleshed it out. They could have had more fun with it and spent more time on the Syndicate and just more time on that world and just shown us who these people are and kind of deal.
Well, I understand why those series were put out for different purposes. I loved Batman the Animated Series. I think it's one of the best animated series of all time. But that ended how long ago? So now you're trying to make a DVD that meets the needs of our generation, but then also a new generation. Are you going to give them, and that it becomes an interesting twist, are you going to give them all that continuity that they had to have seen Batman the Animated Series to understand certain things? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, see, I didn't really have an issue with this going with the way they did because of, for what you're exactly talking about, continuity. It does scare people. In comic books, we're jumping on something that's been a long run. Yeah. So if you're dealing with, can people who aren't even to the comic books pick this up if they thought they had to go back to this, tie-in back to this other series? So I kind of agree with them with how they did this and how they handled it, because it is trying to get new people to read it, new people to watch it.
Except I'm going to agree with Kent a little bit here in the sense that if you look at The Flash, he's so blatantly the Flash that was in that animated series versus one from the comics that, not that he's drastically different from the comics, but I don't know. It could have worked as just, I think you could have made it an isolated movie where you used the same voices as the anime. I'm kind of torn. The more I'm thinking about what Kent's saying, I'm like, you could have done it either way. I don't have an issue. I'm with you. I don't have an issue with it, but I could have seen it being done either way, where you could have made the movie in such a way that, because the team's already established, so we don't see the origin of the Justice League, so there's no reason why you couldn't have done that. Yet, I think because they've like the Batman movies that have been shown previously were so blatantly not tied in and associated with the Batman the Animated Series. They were more tied in with the film universe. The Wonder Woman is such, it wasn't tied in with Justice League Unlimited. It's a brand new Wonder Woman movie. So I think they're staying consistent with that. The next movie, the Batman Under the Red Hood, is, so totally tied into the comics universe versus it being that. I think they're trying to really keep these separate, and I understand what they're doing, but I could have seen them going the other way too. I don't think Kent, do you think it hurt the movie that it wasn't connected?
As a movie? No, I guess. I'm used to. I guess I'm approaching it from the viewpoint of someone who loved the old series, would love to see it continued, would love to see it never ended. But I also wonder, if someone out there is going up to find this on the shelf, okay, and they see Justice League the series. They see Justice League Unlimited, and then they see this Justice League Crisis. I don't know why they would not assume immediately that it's not all part of one universe anyway, and therefore have that's got too much baggage. Why would I want to, watch that if I've got to got to watch all those other things anyway? So I'm not sure that the viewers make that distinction. I mean, viewers, not fans, even perceive that distinction.
Except,
I guess is what I'm saying.
Super Friends is on the shelf as well, and I don't think it should tie into Super Friends continuity, for example. Yeah. So I think I think nowadays with DVDs of old series being on shelves, I do think Justice League now could be considered not an old series in the sense that it's ancient, but it is old enough. I mean that all went down with Cartoon Network quite a while ago now.
True.
And I think it has, whereas if it had been like 2 years ago, for example, I might have a different tune where I'd be like, well, it just ended. Why wouldn't you continue it with it? Like for Battlestar Galactica, for example, I guess there's rumors of a film relaunching Battlestar Galactica that I don't know how far along in development it is, but it's like, we just did the Battlestar Galactica series. Do we really need to relaunch this again right now? If we want to tell more stories with this world, can't we tell a side story or something like that because it's worked? I think this has been far enough away. It could have worked either way. I think it could have worked either. I think it could have worked either way. I think it was a good story. I don't know that you needed to divorce it, but I don't know that it needed to be tied with it either. It's an interesting. I think people probably. I think there's a lot of people, Ken, are probably like you saying, well, no, because I love the series too, and you're saying your love for that series. I'm like, no, I agree with them. It was probably one of the most perfect animated adaptations of a comic book universe. out there, because every character that was on there was spot on. It spawned a comic book that I think just captured the animated series so well and expanded upon the world that they created. And yeah, I would have loved to have seen it. And Batman the Animated Series and Superman, the same thing. I think those worlds, I think we all wanted to see them continue indefinitely, just like you would a comic. And I don't know. So I get that vibe too, so I do understand where you're coming from. I'm just, I guess I'm torn. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation on that. Guys, go ahead.
Oh, there's a flip side of that as well, okay? You know, with the various movies that are independent that they keep making, that are, I say independent, but, you know, of each movie being an independent, not tied to anything continuity, you know, at this point, they now have, are going to have, okay, the original Batman, I say original, but you know, the Batman Gotham Knight that's tied into the movie continuity. And then they've got the Superman Batman Public Enemies that's not tied to anything else.
Well, the comics. It's a direct adaptation of... Wait, hold on. That's a direct adaptation of the comic.
Right. Pretty close, direct. It's pretty close. And then you've got coming up a, Under the Red Hood, which is going to be... your guess is as good as mine how close an adaptation of the comics
Judd Winnick's writing it.
Judd Winnick is writing it.
Yeah. Judd Winnick, the original... Judd Winnick, the original... Wait, Ken, hang on, Ken. Judd Winnick, the original writer, is writing that. So, I mean, that's... It's meant to be an adaptation. I mean, when they build it, same thing with Superman, Batman, Public Enemies. Now, whether or not they succeeded is... certainly you can say that that's questionable. But both of those cases, which they did, when they announced this line, they originally had billed it as being adaptations of comic book work.
Right, yeah.
And so they are going back to that.
Yeah. Well, what I'm getting at is you're ending up with a bunch of unconnected movies, you know? And I wonder if maybe some people, you know, who are not comic readers are maybe picking up this movie and then picking up this movie and then picking up this movie, and they seem to have no connection whatsoever. And I'm not sure what that, you know, what would be the effect.
Why do they have to be connected, though? I guess I don't understand. Like, the Wonder Woman movie was so clearly her origin. It was a good Wonder Woman story. The Green Lantern movie was a great Green Lantern story. And I mean, whether I'm sure people had favorites on these, I don't see where either of those have to be connected because they don't feature any of the same characters. Now, with the Batman ones and Superman Batman ones, there could be an argument where you could say, well, okay, Gotham Knight, which was clearly, it was meant to be a bridging piece between Batman and the Dark Knight.
Right.
The problem I think you run into if you make them too interconnected is, you got that person who just says, okay, I want to try out one of these, and they come up to a series of films where they've got to buy all of them because they're so interconnected that, like, where do you start? Do I have to go back to the beginning? Well, what if you didn't pick up Superman Doomsday? You know, I'm a Green Lantern fan, and I want to just pick up Green Lantern. Can I just get a good Green Lantern movie? You know, I mean, and whether, you know, I said it's debatable how you feel about any of these films as far as which ones you like, but the great thing is a Green Lantern fan or somebody interested in Wonder Woman or somebody interested in Superman, Batman can pick those up, and because they're not interconnected, you can start anywhere. You could have started with this Justice League film. You don't need a launching point. You can just tell a good, contained story. I love continuity just like the next guy, but I think the point of these is to have more of a universal mass market appeal versus it being a ongoing universe where you have to pick up, like if you buy this one, you have to pick up the next one to get the story finished, or if you pick up the next one, you had to have watched the one before it in order to understand it. There's nothing...
I wouldn't want them to do that, you know, to where they're so interconnected that it's basically one long serial. But, you know, making them consistent because as comic readers, we're kind of used to reading, you know, multiple different versions of the same character, you know, between, you know, the main universe and the alternate universe and the Elseworld stories and the various reboots here, there, and yonder, and soft reboots, hard reboots, this, that, and the other. Whereas, you know, I think, you know, without a certain amount of time passing between, various incarnations in a movie, I think there would be an expectation on the viewer that, this is the same character. Well, not the same story going on, directly, to be continued kind of thing, but, I don't know. It's just something that we could argue till the cows come home and, we'd never get an answer.
Yeah, it's going to be like really just thinking about it, personal viewing, personal take on what it is. For me, when I'm seeing these, really I'm not seeing an interconnection and interacting of the characters throughout. That was like, say, the Superman Doomsday compared to the Superman that was just in the Crisis of Two Worlds, or the Wonder Woman that was in her own movie. Is this comparison to the same Wonder Woman? It's not a direct connection of the two, but the character personalities would be something I would say very similar and very, I could understand that person who was in that origin Wonder Woman story eventually growing up and, getting some experience and becoming this Wonder Woman that we saw in the Crisis of Two Worlds. Because that's another thing we got to look at, just time frame when these would occur. See, I don't see the one as a direct feed into the other, which I think is actually a very good marketing attempt on their part. Now, me personally, I would like to see a series of stuff because I like that overall growth over multiple movies and just the change in the development of the characters. Something from movie 1 affects movie 3 kind of deal. I like those stories, but overall marketing, that wouldn't work. Because of...
Hang on, though.
I agree. I don't think that would work, but like the Wonder Woman movie that came out a couple of years ago or last year, whenever it was, and this seemed totally self-consistent to me, as far as I can tell. The same with the Green Lantern movie; those are basically the same characters. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but then we'd never get a new.
You don't need to watch one or all three, or you can watch any of them independently, but they're all consistent. Anybody who watches all three of them, they're getting a fuller experience of it, kind of like what we've talked about with the various miniseries for the big events. You don't have to have them, but if you do have them,
But
anyway,
but then you never get a new. See, to me, then you never get a New Frontier, which I thought was wonderful. And I will say with New Frontier, the characters were a little bit different in New Frontier. The Wonder Woman portrayal in New Frontier is slightly different than the one you would get in the Wonder Woman DVD. And I liked both in very different ways. And
you got exactly my counterexample that I already had written down to bring up. Because there are times when going off into a totally new continuity works so well. Because I consider New Frontier to be actually the best of all the movies that they've made so far. I love that.
I think the hard part about making these movies is... it's not the hard part. I think what they're trying to do is making something that cannot just reach... Because you mentioned before the comic book audience. And I think we do... When you were saying... There were certain things you were saying about continuity. I'm like, these are all things... I agree with you. I love all those things in comics. And it's something that... Would I ideally like them? Yes. I guess where I tend to look at it as globally... And there's a difference between how they market them. Because I do think they're marketing them to us, but I think they're making them with mass market in mind. And I think I would love to see more opportunities taken to market these movies to a larger audience, because I do think that they're a great jumping on point for getting to know these characters. And I'd love to see more of these popping up with little trailers and tidbits on websites that aren't for your traditional quote-unquote geek comic fans. Us. Because I already go to all those sites, and let's show trailers of these movies in places where you would never expect them to see, because they're interesting and they're good stories. And that to me would be even more of a justification of saying, let's keep these kind of self-contained as character pieces to let people get to know a little bit about the characters. Because they are consistent in the sense that the ones that have been original, I'm not talking about the ones that are based off of a comic work, the ones like your Wonder Woman and your Green Lantern and this, where their original stories have been consistent in the sense that they've gotten to the core root of who these characters are. And I think people, when they're done watching this, understand who these characters are and get that kind of vibe, and they might try out a comic book. And I don't, that's something to me, I wish with all these trailers that are on this thing, like, there would be a lot more pointing them back to the original work. So the comics.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, anytime, it's funny, anytime we talk about a movie, whether it's on this show or anybody else's show, we always throw that out there. Why don't they do that? Why don't they tie it back? Why don't they just throw out an advertisement for, go to your local comic shop, check this out. If you enjoyed these stories, here's a whole nother medium maybe you're not getting. And I think it's probably they don't want to try to throw it down people's throats and try to make it look like the purpose of this movie is advertisement, but they're figuring that people would make the logical jump that if they enjoyed this movie, maybe they would enjoy the comic, and maybe they would go seek it out on their own without them. Because if they, one of the best ways to get somebody to do something is tell them to do the opposite. And it's if you tell someone, hey, if you like this, go there, maybe that would push people away. So they're kind of doing a subtle soft play when it comes to the advertisement, not a hard push.
Okay.
That could be the case, but I have heard it objected or read it objected on the internet someplace that there are people, who, hard as it would be for us to believe it, are astonished that there are even such a thing still as Superman and Batman comic books.
Yeah.
They're just much out of, even today, just so much out of the mainstream. They're aware of Superman and Batman as characters, but to them, it's just the movies, it's the TV shows, it's the comic books are just not on their radar.
I
don't know that they would even occur to them to go look for a comic.
It's funny. I've had, like with Smallville, I've had people ask me, about Ollie and Bart and just the characters that they've brought into Smallville, saying, "Hey, how are these guys accurate? Are these is this a good representation of the character?" Because they had no idea who. They knew of the character Flash as a speedster, but they never knew anything about who was the man behind it. Same thing with Green Arrow. Like, yeah, that's some archer guy, shoots some trick arrows, but they don't know who Ollie is. And so, it's something that, people know the main names. They know the big names, they know the big sets, but they don't know the little intricacies and their dealings. Especially like when Dark Knight and Batman Begins came out, and the whole Ra's al Ghul. Everyone's like, the people who weren't comic book fans, no idea who he was. Those of us who knew the character, like, oh, this is a great adaptation of Ra's. This was really cool. Like, oh, okay, and it's people know the broad strokes. They don't know the little details.
But I do think more people are aware that comic books are being used as a viable source for films in Hollywood now.
Yeah.
I think that's becoming more and more with movies like Watchmen and things like that, and 300 and Sin City, and not just Batman, Superman. Those type of movies have really opened up the eyes that comic books are being used a lot for an Iron Man and Spider-Man and Marvel's output.
Yeah.
Iron Man 2, I think everybody's aware of. And, the end, I think people are much more aware of now that there is a comic book product. I would just like to see more being done. It is like book fairs, for example, at my school. You tend to see a lot more of, your kids are exposed to Marvel Adventures. And, I want to see more of the DC books there. But I'm glad to see that comics are getting into the hands of kids again through things like book fairs and all that, because I think it's opening up awareness that this product is out there. And trades, I think trade programs in general, seeing them in bookstores has helped with awareness that these things are still out there and that they're being published in a variety of ways. Guys, if we could talk a little bit about this Spectre short that was in there. I know you're laughing because we already recorded
We're laughing
because
we've recorded this a couple times and we had some technical difficulties, so we're going to record it one more time.
You guys
I think one thing we can conclude is that we've discovered what the cause of the technical difficulties were.
Yeah, that's a good point, too, yeah. The Spectre is one of those things where you guys both got the one-discer. And I guess for me, I bought the Blu-ray, so I always knew I was going to be getting it. I always assumed, though, that if you got the one-discer, it meant you weren't getting the bonus features. I had no idea it meant that you weren't getting the short. That totally threw me for a loop, Jim. When Jim first told me that he didn't see it, I'm like, what? I'm like, it's not on your disc? And he said, no, I got the one discer, but that totally threw me because I figured it was all bonus features and commentary and things like that. Did you guys feel like, see, to me, if you're going to put the production values that you did in that, why would you put out a version that does not feature this thing? That totally threw me for a loop.
Well, me too. As, you know, when I purchased it, I actually figured I was getting, you know, the Justice League movie, the Spectre short, and that's what I figured I was getting. I figured since I was getting the single one, I wouldn't be getting the various episodes of the old Justice League series and the Aquaman TV pilot and the Wonder Woman TV pilot. You know, the Justice League episodes, I have all of the DVDs. I didn't need those. And the Aquaman and the Wonder Woman, I would have liked to have had them, but, you know, I wasn't going to buy a second disc just to get them. You know, perhaps I would have gone ahead and gotten the second disc if I had, you know, if I'd realized that was the only way I was going to get the Spectre. But it wasn't until I got home and found out I'd just gotten a single disc, or I knew I'd just gotten a single disc, but found out that I didn't get it, that I discovered that. I felt disappointed, let's put it that way, because I was kind of looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Not enough to exchange it, though.
Yeah, with me, because it wasn't even about, I didn't even have the 2-disc option to choose. When I was there was only the one, they had sold out of the deluxe edition, so I only had the 1-disc option. That was it. So I kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm going with this option because I picked it up because I wanted to watch it before we did any recording and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't feel like going hunting around, you know, the various places to try to track it down. And I was kind of miffed that I didn't get that, you know, because that was something I was looking forward to, especially because you were talking about how cool it was, and when I watched it, you know, I was like, yeah, this is kind of a neat thing. And it's, on one hand, as I said, it comes down to a lot of marketing. They want to give bang for the buck. So that 2-disc special, they want to make sure you have something extra above and beyond. If you're going to shell out a couple bucks more, you're going to get a little bit more for it. And, you know, it's got me thinking that, you know, I got to make sure I got to pre-order these, you know, specials, these deluxe editions, so I do get it in the future, so I don't miss out on it. But I don't know. I was a little bit miffed that I didn't get it, but I understand, you know, on the business side of it, why they wanted to make sure that the 2-disc had a little bit more than the 1-disc.
I'm not sure if I had read the small print, I would have seen, you know, exactly what I was getting, but I didn't.
Looking at the Spectre thing, it was a Jim Corrigan Spectre. The thing starts off with this 70s vibe, right down to the 70s music. Even the filter used for the images gave it this 70s kind of sheen to the whole thing. And I don't know about you, Jim. You've seen Ninja Scroll?
Yeah.
The anime style
Yes.
was very much like something out of Ninja Scroll, which worked in this type of horror environment because it reminded me, it wasn't quite as supernatural as you would get in Ninja Scroll, but it was enough so that it really did fit the style of this type of film. Did you get that vibe at all from it?
Oh, definitely got the anime feel from it. You know, it's for me, I would call it soft anime. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's an anime nod, but it's not true anime style artwork. It still had a little bit, you know, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, little zig and zag. And it was funny, when that opening music kicks in, I even threw out the shaft, because it had that boom, chicka, boom, 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 kind of like style and beat to it.
The way you did that, it sounds like an entirely different kind of movie than I saw.
Okay, true. Okay, that was 70s other type of movie, sorry.
But, hey, all right. I was seeing the Spectre. I don't know what you saw. But anyway. I'm glad you had fun, though. The whole movie takes place in L.A., and Steve Niles was the writer on this, so it really had that great kind of horror vibe that he brings into the whole thing. Jim Corrigan shows up at a murder. His ex is there. It's Brennan, who was killed, his daughter, Amy. And the guy it was a mob hit where the guy was killed at his pool. The whole thing blew up. And it's funny, she was using their history, and it was clear to, like, throw him off. Walks up crying and, playing she's a cute blonde. Fleming didn't see anything, but Fleming, who was like kind of the butler, didn't see anything. But he said the security camera had something little convenient, and I was like, my first vibe out of that is, boy, this was supposed to be seen in order to throw people off of the actual killers. So, but because the Spectre's involved in this, he's right after the first suspect, who's Flynn. Very creepy, because he works on like toys and wax models and things like that, mannequins and different kinds of
the special
marionettes.
effects, the special effects deal.
Yeah, and because of all those things, they start coming to life in the studio, and you see horror monsters coming in. And this bit where the gorilla actually killed him after you see him attacked by all these monsters, I love that it was done in a fashion where you didn't see him killed on screen. It didn't need to be shown. It was scarier because you didn't see it on screen.
Yeah.
You see this moment where his death, is coming. So, anyway, we find out through Corrigan being talked to by his superior officer that Brennan's murderers, the murder suspects, are all being killed one by one. Peter McCoy, who's a driver at this point, only a guilty man flees the scene. There's this great moment where, the brakes are taken out because he just says, fine, you want me to go away? I'm going to go away. The brakes are taken out, and he comes crashing to his death because the Spectre creates this ramp out of the road that shoots him into thin air, and he's thrown from his vehicle, survives being thrown from his vehicle, starts to get up, but it's clear that he's horribly hurt. The vehicle, which was destroyed, starts reconstructing itself like a,
It was a nice Christine moment kind of deal.
Yeah, but like an angry Knight Rider. The thing kicks up, it's Kit, really mad that, Michael, I don't know.
Dude, it's Christine, man.
Yeah.
Come on. That was a classic car. Just come back, repair
Great book,
itself,
too.
run people down. I was eating that up big time because it gets better and it starts playing the cat and mouse kind of bumping them and hitting them and running them over and just giving them little love taps with his bumper that I thought was just really cool stuff. And then
what did it do to him again? It went to the
bump, little
you were
bumps.
back to your other movie you were talking about earlier. But
No, that would be bump, chicka, wow, wow, kind of thing.
Wow. Anyway, back to Brennan's daughter, Amy, the ringleader of this whole thing. It was great. This movie moved. It was 11 minutes long, so the story didn't... They really had to move a lot of storytelling in a short period of time. Your daddy should have let you stay. And, should have let you be a star. Your daddy should have let you be a star. And that moment where we realized that she was the ringleader behind the whole thing, she gave them the security codes. They were new bills, which could easily be traced back to her account. She pulls a gun. I could have given you the world. And he's like, I left the world a long time ago. She's pulling the trigger on him. Turns into the Spectre. And the money starts swirling around her. And we have this horrifying death moment.
Yeah, that was...
Wait, hang on. We don't want him talking on it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, with the money swirling around, and that was something that's classic Spectre, where it is the form of either their greed or what they did is what kills them. And this, with her, it was the money that killed her. With the other guys, it was the car, and then with the super freaky puppets that killed them. With her, it was the money. And I thought that was the money swirling goes from red, and you see the red in there. You see the dollar bills flying and hitting into the glass. That was just a cool death Spectre scene. But the thing that got me the most was that I knew he would become eventually the Spectre, and I thought this was going to be a tale of how he becomes the Spectre. Because when we see the Spectre, he doesn't have the Corrigan face on him. Instead it looks like somebody else. And I was thinking he wasn't the Spectre yet. I know it was kind of stupid, thinking that he should have been, but his interactions with the people, everybody saw him. I'm thinking, okay, he's still alive.
And you thought it was a different Spectre host?
I thought it was a different Spectre host.
I did
this
too
is
when
how
I first saw it.
He becomes the Spectre. Because when she goes for the gun, I'm like, oh man, she's going to gun him down, and then he's going to become the Spectre. And that's how I was thinking this was going to be, telling the origin of him as the Spectre, and she was going to be the first victim. The first person he gets the revenge on. And the fact that he already was the Spectre was just a great swerve that I was like, oh, that is cool. I like that.
When I saw that say it was the second time I saw it. When I saw it for the first time, I was totally with you. I thought that he was not yet the Spectre and that this was a different host and we were going to see him become the Spectre. They did a lot in 11 minutes. I thought it was a very cool. I'm hoping that this becomes the norm for future releases where they have a short on there. But to me, I'm baffled. Why would you create this and not make it available to everybody? Like, why bother doing like the single disc version if you're going to cut out something like this? Just release the 2-discer to everybody. Make that your. Why do we have to have these like? This is becoming an increasing problem when they're releasing DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff like that. I'm all for when you release the ones packaged with statues and stuff like that, you make that separate. You know, or extra swag and all that kind of stuff. Fine. Do that separate for the fans who want the super deluxe collector's edition with, you know, the huge batarangs and the owl ship and stuff like that. I know that because I've got these things. But make that for fans that want those, but don't take away from content that, like, is new and essential. Like a brand new animated feature, make that available to the general public and let them know. Because I think, you know, you, Jim, bought that. Did you know you weren't getting the Spectre?
No, yeah, I had no idea that I wasn't getting the Spectre.
And it sounds like Kent, you didn't know that either.
I'm the one who thought that I was actually getting it.
Yeah. So actually, you both wound up in that same boat. Both of you thought you were getting it and you didn't. That to me is unfair because that thing was billed out there, and I. You know, why would you think that you weren't getting that special? Did it? Because it doesn't. Did it say it anywhere in your packaging that the Spectre's not in here?
It didn't say the Spectre's not in, but it also didn't say the Spectre is in. It does. It said, you know, with special extra features. I'm like, oh, okay, it's got extra features and it's probably got that there. Mm-hmm. They didn't specify what the special extra features were. It just said special features. And in reality, the special features I think is that multiple languages and some previews to, like, you know, Under the Hood, Public Enemies, and I think First Flight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't. You know, it doesn't say that it's in there. But, you know, of course, it wouldn't say, "Hey, you're not getting the Spectre with this one."
Like, nah, you're not gonna get it.
Yeah. Rubber noses in it. I would have liked to have seen it, but as I said, it didn't. It didn't make me go back and exchange or anything.
So, did you guys enjoy, just as kind of a wrap up on this, Crisis on Two Worlds? Worthwhile purchase? Go ahead, Ken.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yes.
Jim?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. As we said, we had that one scene, and once I was able to work through that scene, it was a really good. It was a really good story, and I liked, as you said, how the ending where it progressed and led for a sequel to this. There could be more Justice League movies using this cast, using this universe. There could be a second one and additional stories, and even if it has nothing to do with the crossover into the other Earth 3. If it's just these characters, there could be another JLA movie, and I'd pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And given their proclivities that we've already discussed, I'm not sure they'll ever do that, though.
Yeah, I'm sure sales will drive those decisions. So I'm sure if there's standout ones, they'll say, "Hey, maybe we should do more of this." I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see. I don't know. I don't pay any attention to what these are. I should look up what these are doing sales numbers wise. If there are ones that are doing better than the others, I don't know. I'm hoping that some of these unique ones, like Wonder Woman, to me, I think Wonder Woman's a unique one over some of the other ones. Where I'm hoping that Wonder Woman did well. Green Lantern, I'm hoping did well because you figure Green Lantern hasn't had a big screen film yet, so I'm hoping Green Lantern did well. In New Frontier, which I think that was labeled as Justice League New Frontier.
Right.
So I'm betting the Justice League and that one and this one, because they had the Justice League branding, might have done better because of them. I don't know. I'm enjoying the fact that we're getting new and original animation out of them, and I'm hoping that these are successful and that they continue, because I definitely think I'd love to see more television series like we're getting with Brave and the Bold and stuff like that. And I'd like to see more of this, because I think any exposure for comic book characters at all is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Here, ready to move up.
Jim, our next episode is going to be JLA Avengers with Kent Hare. We're going to do the two-parter of that, and then we're going to come right back with our discussion of the greatest DC Universe stories of all time. We've been delaying this because we've had trouble coordinating between Kent, and then you got sick, and I was sick, and we seem to have one disaster after another when it came to trying to record JLA Avengers. I really want to get to this, though, because it's been a book of the month that we've been talking about getting to. It's a chance to talk about one of the greatest DC Universe teams, and one of the greatest Marvel teams. So it fits our whole thematic month of what's great about the DC Universe. This is one of those stories that falls into that core. I mean, it's Kurt Busiek and George Perez. We got to talk about this. And we're also on that episode going to start airing listener voicemails and emails about your greatest DC Universe stories of all times. The ones that you guys want on there. There's still time to participate in that. So if there's things that you were like, geez, I wish I had called and gotten a part of it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this whole month about that, and we're going to keep airing these things. So there's going to be discussion on every episode about your greatest DC Universe stories of all time that we're bringing into the episode. So if there's something you're like, geez, I really wish I'd called in and shouted that one out, it's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. And if you want to, you can also email me at ragingbullets@gmail.com. So lots of different options as far as contacting the show and getting your thoughts on that greatest DC Universe stories of all time. But what are your stories? The ones that really stand out for you, that are ones that you just can't live without, or you want to tell people hey, if you miss this, you need to read it. Because that's what The Cult was for me. Great example of a story, and that's why I chose it for the in-stock trades. I couldn't. I'm so glad it's in print again. I want to do this on the show so bad. So we got The Cult coming up too. That'll be probably our last recording in April. So we were going to either end it, it'll be a month from now. We'll either air it at the end of April or the beginning of May, depending on when you and I are able to record it. But we'll record it for sure in April, because I can't wait to talk about it. InStockTrades.com has the Batman the Cult. It's regularly $19.99, 208 pages, 47% off, only $10.59. Over at DCBService.com, The Shield #9, written by Eric Trotman, co-feature written by Brandon Giroir, art by Marco Rudy and Mick Gray, co-feature art by Michael Avon Omeg. Operation Gunslinger continues as the Justice Society of America teams up with the Shield for an adventure in the sleepy town of Happy Harbor. Plus, the Fox is now a fully trained martial arts master, but is he ready to face the deadly Dragon's Head clan? $3.99 regularly, 40% off, only $2.39. I'm excited, to see I'm bittersweet excited to see the end of this arc, because it kicked off so strong. Issue number 7 I really enjoyed. We're going to be having friend of the show Art Lyon come on, and we're going to be talking about the Shield, because I really want to talk about his color work and the art design and the art. I love the art direction of this book. I think it's a very unique looking book. Over at the DC Source site, you can see some great preview artwork of the Shield over there. They regularly post in the Source blog, and there's a dual page spread that for me stood out as what is so great about the artwork. And you got to know which 2-page spread I'm talking about, Jim. It's in issue number 7. That was a preview art piece that was put on the Source, and I actually have that as one of my desktop backgrounds. And the great thing about it is it shows widescreen on your computer, whereas a lot of the images, the cover images, they don't take up the full screen. So definitely download the Shield one and put it on your computer, because it's very, very cool. But the Shield artwork design is, to me, the story direction's fantastic by Eric Trotman. The artwork design's great. I'm going to shout out this series, and don't shy away from it because it's being canceled. Pick it up because it's a good story. It's an interesting one to pick up, and pick up the 4-issue arc. If you pick up the first issue of issue number 7 and you're like, it's not for me, then at least you tried it and you're only one issue out. But it's a good jumping on point. I thought issue number 7, with the fact that it does go into Higgins' background as the Shield, is a great jumping on point for people to get to know this character and where he came from. So for those of you that have been like, I don't know, I'm kind of interested, I'm kind of not, this is a good time to pick up that book, because it's you can pick up a single issue, decide if it's your cup of tea. If it is, continue on and finish out, a 4-issue arc. It's like picking up a miniseries. So for those of you that, hey, I've got room in my budget for a miniseries, this is a good miniseries to pick up, knowing that the book's going to end. And kind of enjoy the Shield and see what you've been missing. Jim, 4 years, buddy. I personally want to thank you. 4 years of doing this show, there's very few people that are nuts enough to do to go along with some of the insane things I come up with, and you certainly are one of those people. But it's been, this has been like a radio show experience for me. And we do record this show like it's a radio show. We let the discussions go where they do. We don't worry about the length. We break a lot of, quote-unquote, I guess they're called podcast rules. But I really appreciate you. I appreciate the listeners. I appreciate fellow podcasters, creators who come on the show sponsors, just everybody who really has, anybody who shouted us out on a website. Whether you listen to our show once, you listen every week, it doesn't matter. Thank you so much for giving us any of your time, although some of the people who listen to us once might not be listening to this. But thank you anyway. To me, this show, it's all about the people that we've been involved with, the friends that we've made. I'm very lucky that comics, through podcasting, has become something where I really feel like it's a community aspect. It was such an isolated hobby in my childhood. It's so great now to have so many friends to chat comics with, whether we agree, whether we disagree, it doesn't matter. But I want to thank you, pal, for the amount of time you put into this show and just joining me for this endeavor.
I tell you, this has been just a crazy, just wonderfully crazy, experience. And I honestly do not know what my life would be like, what I would be like if it wasn't for doing this. These 4 years have, got me through some pretty rough times. I've celebrated some, wonderful times. It's been an emotional roller coaster, throughout the whole time. And usually there's always just, no matter what bad stuff I had to deal with, I always had the show. I always had our discussions. I always had, meeting different people from around the world, just, friends that we've made over time that, oh, yeah, I'm going to get to see, them. I'm going to get to see him at the con. Oh, I got this coming up. Oh, cool. It's just been something that I never imagined would actually happen to me, that I am just grateful that we're able to do this, that people even listen to us and enjoy what we have to say. And it's a bit emotional for me.
I want to give a shout out to the Comic Geek Speak guys. Back when I was just a listener of their podcast, well over 4 years ago now, they had audio comments you could send in. So I manned up and kind of decided, I'll send in my audio comment. Who cares what kind of an idiot I sound like on there? And I really had fun with it. And they were so open with listeners participating and things like that. If I hadn't done that with their show, I would never be doing this right now. When I decided that I wanted to do a podcast, if it wasn't for the time that Peter Rios gave me, he sent me an email, and I sent him an email, I should say, and we were trading emails back and forth. He was kind enough and patient enough to trade multiple emails with me, helping me kind of get a path on where I wanted to go in podcasting. And if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be doing this show now, because he really helped me kind of pin down who I was as a podcaster and really what I wanted to do. And that led to, of course, what you and I are doing now. So thank you very much to Peter Rios for that. At the time that we started, Indie Spinner Rack was getting started. And that, through that discussion with Peter, we started realizing that, some specialized podcasts were new things. Nobody was doing a DC or Marvel podcast at the time. And, I'm like, well, I kind of want to go with the underdog because I'm a fan of all comics. I read indies, I read Marvels, I read DCs. I'm a fan of all comics. I wanted to kind of pin something down, though, and do something that nobody else was doing at the time. And, the DC one was kind of the way to go. And I'm so glad that we did, because I'm reading books now, because I'm reading the entire superhero line. I'm reading smaller books, quote-unquote smaller books, like The Shield. Great example of a book that I probably wouldn't picked up if I was as spread out as I used to be in comics. So there's an advantage to really following a universe in the sense that you get to try some smaller titles where people are doing some really creative things. The art direction and the storytelling in The Shield is a great example of a book that I'm so glad that I'm reading because I do this show. And it's a book now I would have stuck with The Shield. It's going to end with issue 10, but if I see that that character is going to appear elsewhere, I'm so invested in him now.
Yeah.
And the creators. These are creators on this book who I will follow, and their artwork. I will follow the storytelling because they gave me a great experience with The Shield for the 10 issues that they did. So, I'm really excited for stuff like that. But I want to thank Peter Rios from Comic Geek Speak for that. I also want to give a shout out to Ian Levinstein from Comic Timing. He was doing a podcast called Geek Speak then. And he did a cartoon show, and we met at one of the CGS conventions. It was way before the Super Show, and it was a CGS get together for listeners. And we met there, and we were chatting, and he invited me to come on his podcast for a cartoon show. And we talked very Raging Bullet style for well over a couple hours about that. And I had such a great time. It just gave me the bug. And if it wasn't for Ian Levinstein, and he's been a friend of mine ever since. We've had him on our show. We've been on Comic Timing. But it is one of those things outside of that. Ian's a guy who I consider a very close friend. And again, there wouldn't be a Raging Bullets without an Ian Levinstein. So I want to give a shout out to Ian Levinstein and Comic Timing for that as well. And I'm going to keep, there's so many other podcasters that if I tried going through, so I'm just going right to the origins of Raging Bullets. After the show got started, so many other podcasters were kind. A lot of those are in our links section. If there's somebody who isn't in the links section, you darn well should be, please let me know. I've tried throughout, the history of the show to try to do another solid to anybody else who's in podcasting by shouting them out, playing promos and things like that. Sometimes I've been really good at it. Other times, just because life gets busy, I haven't been as good at it. If there's something that, I'm not supporting you or need to shout out, I do want to, to me, podcasting is community-based. There is no competition in podcasting. My opinion is if you're putting out a good show and a good product, you're going to find an audience who wants to listen to that. You're never going to do a show that pleases everybody. But the people that are into your show are going to be diehards because you have an identity and they want to be there. And I really want to thank the people that, whether you listen to us casually or all the time, who found that there's something in our identity that's, you crazy nuts, you find that's worth listening to because, boy, are we long-winded. But, for 4 years, I just really want to thank everybody. The podcasting community, the comic community, friends of the show, listeners, people who post in the forum, people who just listen and I don't know you. There's a lot of people who just like to listen to this podcast. Looking at our numbers, there's a ton of you who I've never had a conversation with on a forum or Facebook or MySpace or wherever, or at a con or anything. You just listen to the show, enjoy that. You never send an email or anything, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great, and thank you for just giving us your time. I just that means a lot. When you do this and you put the hours in that you do, and you look at your numbers and you see that people listen and they find value to keep coming back every week, it means a lot in what we do. So there is a Raging Bullets because of all of you, and thank you. And I mean, that's really true of any podcast, and I do encourage you to support any of your podcasts. Over the years, people have done reviews of us on Podcast Alley, Pop Current, iTunes reviews. Whether you liked us or you didn't, even just, giving some notice that you listen to the podcast is great. We're not perfect, and, I totally accept criticisms of this show, but I really appreciate that whatever portion of the show you listen to, whether you skip around with the show notes or whatever, you found some value in what we do. And, hopefully we've increased your enjoyment of comics, because this medium for me, to be able to week after week share what comics are to me, they are my escape. You talked about how this, this show and comics have been your escape, Jim. That's been my whole life with comics. That's why, this show to me has been a fanzine. It's been about my love for comics. A lot of times on the forum we'll get people who say, is there some kind of edict on the show about, not posting negative things or not saying negative things? It's not that at all. If you look back, take a look at our episodes on All-Star Batman and Robin where I didn't like Batman. My experience with comics has never been one where I've had a comic that I've hated. I've had moments that I've really disliked. I've had characters that I've hated in a comic. But the experience with the issue has usually been, wow, that was worthwhile. It was a good issue versus a great issue. But it was still a good issue. It was worth being in my stack. My problem with comics has always been not enough time, not enough money. One of those two things has factored me not picking up a book versus it's crap, I'm dumping it. And that's really what this show has been all about, is voicing that perspective, because that's what kind of comics are to me. But we always welcome all kinds of opinions, whether you agree or disagree with us, and that's kind of our whole theme and MO. So, I don't know, I could go on for hours. We literally usually do.
You can, yeah we have.
Yeah. But, I just want to end off with that and just kind of say, one of my big, if there's anything people ever get out of this show after 200 episodes, it's, if your comics are making you angry, please take a look at the size of the previews catalog and try some new things. Comics are wonderful. This hobby for me has been such a joy, such an escape. It's such an incredible art form, and it's so diverse. Pick up something new. Pick up a book that you're going to enjoy and rave about it. The ones you really like, rave about them. Because this medium, it's numbers in my eyes, and I've said this before, I feel that the numbers of what we consider for the best top-tier comics that we consider, wow, look at that, it was a number one. The numbers for those number one books right now are, in my eyes, disgusting for the quality. And I think when books like The Shield, for example, which I think is a top-quality book, is being canceled and doesn't have an audience, there's a problem. We're not shouting out enough the books we enjoy. Don't worry about shouting out books you don't like. Please do yourself a favor. Go on websites and try to go on websites that aren't typically comic related, but ones that you enjoy where you think people are there that are similar minded to you, whether it's a gaming site or something like that you're going to, or any other kind of hobby site that you have where you're like, geez, I'm at a Doctor Who science fiction site or something like that. Let me pop in and shout out Rebels or something, something that like kind of would connect to that audience, and try to shout out comics where people aren't usually. Because I do think there's a lot of these books are canceled and they don't have an audience. And after 200 shows, I hope that's something that people get motivated to do. If you have a blog, post about comics on your blog. Do something to get the word out. Because I hate, this thing with the Shield. It's kind of appropriate that it's happening now, only in the sense that it's got me kind of motivated to rant about this. And it's something that I really do thematically hope comes out of this podcast and it's positive for the comic industry. It's that don't let books you like get canceled without trying to do something about it, without trying to say something about it. And, that's kind of my whole MO on this. And I'll leave it at that because I do think that that's kind of the theme of the show. Ending off this episode, Jim, is just a fantastic Raging Bullets parody, once again by Eli. He outdid himself. So please, for your listening enjoyment, here's Eli, and we will see you next week with JLA Avengers.
Bye! $200 Raging Bullets, who knew it would last this long? So I sing this song about 200. How much time have I spent with this show? Let me think. I need a drink. Dissecting swerves, dialogue, artist strokes, Comic-Cons, interviews, and lame jokes. Recommending new books, we know what that means. ATM withdrawals, they're up to 200. It's spoiler-filled, you may have to come back instead. They go over stuff you've not read. Jim makes up words seamlessly on a whim. Then Sean scratches his head and he grins. For the school teacher knows fake vocabulary. And when Jim gets caught, he gives Sean the finger. But never crass, proclaiming Sean's number one. They have such fun. They always have fun. They're on a good run. They're second to none. Let's hope they're not done. Always fun. It's just fun. Oh, they released a new show. I'm so behind. Dude, that is outstanding.
I'm actually recording this, Jim, because I think I was just going to play the song and leave it at that. But how can we do that? That dude is so talented.
God. Dude, that was outstanding. That was just simply outstanding. And I'm like, wow.
I'm just flabbergasted by the whole thing. I waited to listen to it until I was on with you. figuring that we could have a genuine reaction to the whole thing. I'm like, well, maybe we'll record it if there's a thing. That was so good. And I mean, totally dead on about us. How many times on the forum? I'm so behind.
Well, that is not only worthy of an outstanding, that gets a...
which is a made-up word. So it totally fits what he says. But I want to thank Eli for that because, that's something. And throughout this whole month, we have a lot of listener content coming your way for the 200th anniversary of Raging Bullets. I think that's very cool. So it's going to be all about the listeners this month. We had the contest entries on this episode, but this is going to be more of this. So it's great that you guys are going to be so a part of celebrating this month with us. We love you, and thank you so much for listening.
Woo!